We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start off with agenda changes. Are there any agenda changes that you need to be aware of? Anybody have an agenda change?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Yes, I would like to add an agenda item to our new,
New business? All right. And what's that?
for our code of conduct.
Okay. So I'm going to do 6D, new business, code of conduct. Any other changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda adding 6D, code of conduct.
Motion to adopt.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Counselor seconded. All in favor, say aye. Going down the list, Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman John.
Aye.
Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick. Councilman Rick. Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion. I'm sorry, he's on, but I don't see him. He didn't say anything. I mean, I see his name. All right, we got the agenda adopted. So indication today, Pastor King is joining us. If he's out there, you can unmute yourself. We'll have our invocation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Town Council, for having me and for allowing me to give the invocation. Let us pray. Eternal One, known to us in many ways and by many names, you who sustain our lives as well as our life together, you who have given us life and breath and being from your own substance. We give thanks for your presence in our lives and in the life of our communities. And indeed, we invoke your presence among us this evening. May that presence, your presence and thought of your eternal healing guide this faithful group of Harrisburg town leaders and concerned citizens in their work of unending service to this great community. We give thanks for their tireless commitment to serving each and every member of Harrisburg, those in the middle of everything, as well as those on the margins of anything. Those whose voices are often raised easily in meetings such as this, and those whose voices are often never heard. As you must surely know, O Holy One, taking care of everyone is no easy task. We do not envy the difficulties faced by this town's leadership in this often impossible time of pandemic. We pray for their spirits and ask for your grace and mercy with one another in the midst of new dimensions in all our relationships. Together we seek your guidance for the greater good of all. Hear this, our humble prayer. And now, in the name of all that is holy, together we all say, Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we got a couple of special presentations today. I'm going to read our Black History Month proclamation. Black History Month was inspired by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, a Harvard University trained Black scholar who found in studies that history books largely ignored the Black population. And whereas Dr. Woodson accepted the challenge of writing Black people into nation's history and went on to launch programs that have culminated into a month that draws the world's attention to the contributions of Black people throughout history. And whereas this observation affords special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and honor that many Black leaders who have contributed in the progress of our nation, and whereas such knowledge can strengthen the insight of all citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers of equity for minority groups and continuing struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. Therefore, I, Steve Shasha, Mayor of the town of Harrisburg, now North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2021 as Black History Month. All right, so we're going to next up, we're going to go to a presentation on the Harrisburg Discrimination Ordinance of Mary Perez with Encompassing Margin Corporation.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the Mayor and Town Council for allowing me to join you tonight. My name is Mary Perez. I am an almost lifelong citizen of Cabarrus County and the founder and president of Encompassing Margins Corporation. I proposed a non-discrimination ordinance in January as the rights of the LGBTQ community are of great importance to me. The ordinance I proposed has been available to this council directly, as well as to the community through the recent Independent Tribune article. I will instead focus on the intent and the background of the ordinance since you have access to the actual language. It's been my experience that people who are not members of a particular group often do not understand the issues directly impacting that group. To that end, it may surprise some of you to know that right now, LGBTQ people in North Carolina, including Harrisburg specifically, are not fully protected from discrimination in many areas. This includes housing, employment, and public spaces. LGBTQ people report being denied service, evicted, and even mistreated at healthcare facilities because of who they are or who they love. That's what creating this ordinance is all about. It's about protecting us all equally. It is about treating people the way we want to be treated, with respect and dignity, and creating a community where we can all thrive. I know that some like to encourage maintaining the status quo by stoking fear, but that is not how I operate, and that is not how the LGBTQ community operates. For us, it is and has always been about love. Love of ourselves, love of each other, and love of those outside of our community. And I apologize if I get emotional, but this is a very personal topic. That's it. I don't know how anyone can argue against love. In North Carolina, 6 cities and counties have already passed non-discrimination ordinances. They include Carborough, Chapel Hill, Durham, Greensboro, Hillsborough, and Orange County. Here in Harrisburg and in Cabarrus County, this is just the beginning of a conversation. I truly hope you will listen to the stories of your constituents here in Harrisburg and about their countless amazing allies who believe wholeheartedly that we should all start acting like we are one, because we are one. We are your children. We are your parents. We are your siblings. We are your neighbors. We are your best friend. We are your childhood crush. We are you. We are everyone. We are all branches on the same tree. And our struggle against each other will surely take the entire tree down. Yet joining hands and behaving as if we are in this together, we sink our roots deeper and we build a stronger foundation for all of us to succeed and draw prosperity and equality to this community. As a lesbian woman married to a transgender man, this is very personal to me. I love Harrisburg. Prior to the pandemic, I regularly attended the holiday festivities, the art fairs. I've made pottery in Harrisburg. I've eaten meals at La Unica and Hawthorne's. I love Harrisburg. And I can tell you firsthand, those of us in the LGBTQ community who spend time in Harrisburg, we already know which spaces we are welcome in and which spaces we are not as welcome. I know which restaurants my spouse and I can grab a meal in without a second glance, and which we will receive angry glares in from the moment we enter until we end our meal. While the latter is very hurtful, we learn from those interactions, and we tend to avoid those locations going forward for our own safety and for the sake of our mental health. Knowing the feeling of being called dyke from the window of a passing local pickup truck, I have a very vested interest in sending a message that discrimination is not okay. Thus, I am eager to help introduce a conversation that could lead Harrisburg in joining 300 other cities in 21 states in stating decisively with a clear policy that anti-LGBTQ discrimination will not be permitted in this community. I am aware that people outside of Harrisburg and Cabarrus County are standing at the ready to cheer for discrimination and support perpetuating harm to the people in Harrisburg. Considering this is only a draft, just one possible direction Harrisburg may choose to take in support of making this town a welcoming place for all to live, work, and do business without fear of harm or discrimination. I ask you to take the time to listen to the constituents and business leaders. There is time and there is a community right here that want to do this right. As a nation, we long ago decided that businesses that are open to the public should be open to everyone on the same terms. No one should be turned away from a business or denied service simply because of who we are or who we love. This ordinance simply seeks to make clear that LGBTQ people may no longer be legally subjected to discrimination. All people, all, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and any other manner of queer, should be treated fairly and have the same opportunity to earn a living and make a life for themselves and their families. Many classes of people are already protected. However, no one can be fully protected if the LGBTQ community is left out. We intersect with every single category. Our community has every race. We have every religion, we have every disability, we have veterans and active duty members, and yes, some of our community even represent conservative viewpoints. I encourage the town council to continue to be open and to learn more about this issue and to consider a working session in the future to explore the option further. Together with our local PFLAG chapter, I look forward to helping the town council members find a solution and address the pain and exclusion that LGBTQ people too often experience. Again, I thank you for your time and your consideration of this ordinance.
Thank you, Mary. Was Pastor King going to speak as well?
I will leave that to him.
I
think he is open to speaking.
Yep, if he has any words to say, he certainly can do it as part of this.
Great, thank you so much. I was looking, I don't see him on here there unless he has.
Did he drop off?
I'm not
Okay,
sure if he dropped or if I just can't see him from our view.
No, somebody's looking and apparently he must have dropped off after the introduction. So I got it back. All right, thank you, Mary. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Pastor King, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do so. My apologies for leaving the meeting somehow there. I sent a letter today earlier, and I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read it or not, but just to reiterate a little bit of what I said in my letter is that I've been a Christian pastor in Concord now for over 20 years. I want to thank you for even entertaining such a proposal as this ordinance, and I applaud your courage for doing so. I strongly urge the adoption of this ordinance. I think all of us are aware, at least can imagine, that LGBT people experience varying degrees of discrimination in different places in terms of service and amenities, in terms of their health care as well as employment, and they deserve protection. I think we all agree no one should be discriminated against, and I know you've probably also received a number of letters along with mine, other letters in opposition to these protections, many of them from people of faith. It's my opinion that if discrimination didn't exist in our communities, letters of opposition probably wouldn't be coming in. I think those are a demonstration that given the opportunity to discriminate, people will do so. And yet we're called to serve, you like I, as a pastor, am called to serve people who are on the margins particularly. And, I would like to see, I think Harrisburg has an opportunity here to be a shining example in this county to other communities, to do the right thing and do the right thing by members who are in pain and hurting and living in fear of their lives in terms of their employment, possibility of being fired for who they are. as well as, being turned out of housing and their apartments for who they are. So for me, the right thing to do from my faith perspective is to do the loving thing, as Mary has already said, do what is right by love, and ensure these protections for all citizens by passing this ordinance. I recognize that you may not be prepared to vote on this ordinance tonight or to do that quickly in the future, but certainly I think the rights of all citizens is important enough that it ought to be considered fully and with ample consideration for the weight of it. So thank you for entertaining that initially, and I encourage you to go forward with it, and I certainly do support unequivocally the passing of such an ordinance.
Thank you, pastors. Any questions from the floor, from council, either Mary or pastor? Thank you very much for your time.
I do have a question. I'm sorry. So, Mrs. Perez, thank you for sharing your experience with us today. I appreciate you for doing that. I know it's hard. I do have a question. With your organization, have you sent this ordinance out to other municipalities throughout the state? And what has the response been for you?
I sent them, we try to serve all of Cabarrus County, so I sent the ordinance to every municipality in Cabarrus County, and Harrisburg is the first to consider it. I was told by Concord that they're focused on forming their Concord United Committee at the moment, and they could perhaps consider it once they get through that portion of what they're working on right now, but that's where we stand right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We're going to move along. We're going to go to public comment. Anyone wishing to address town council may do so during public comment section. State your name and address for the record. Be courteous, do not repeat what's already been said, and please keep your comments about the subject and not specific to any council member's name or personal in nature. So we'll go to, I've got a couple emails and we'll ask if there are any other additional emails. I'm going to go to Janet now, and then we'll go to the two emails I have, which is just calling out two folks, and then we'll go down to the floor of the people that are online.
Okay, I have 3 that were emailed in, so I'm going to read those. And we'll start with the first one. Council members actually received this email directly in the attached photos, so you obviously know what it says verbatim. So for the sake of protecting the identity of the council member, we're going to leave out any names. And I'm going to read this. This came from Rebecca Herrick, and this is her statement. Last year, I walked by a house in my neighborhood during phase 1 of COVID, which prohibited any social gatherings as directed by Governor Cooper. I noticed a council member's wife attending the party and obviously can assume her husband was also attending. I took a picture of the party, and a few minutes later, a man ran down the street screaming and yelling at me, demanding I give him my phone. I was pushing my 4-year-old in a stroller and feared for my and his safety, which prompted me to call 911. On January 22nd, a thread on Harrisburg, North Carolina was started about people speeding through Deer Drive. This council member joined into the bullying that occurred towards me. The first comment, "Do you guys still have that crazy lady running through your neighborhood? Call the police at random." This was followed by, maybe offer to buy her a vest and she can call the police on the speeders or write their name down on the naughty list, which was followed by a picture posted with a person sitting in a chair holding a blower dryer as a radar gun. I am appalled at this behavior from an elected official. In reading the council code of conduct, this clearly violates section F, subsection 5, which states, remember that elected officials' actions are always being scrutinized. The community is constantly observing elected officials every day that serve in office. Their behaviors and comments serve as models of proper deportment in the town. Honest and respect for the dignity of each individual should be reflected in every word and action taken by elected officials 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is a serious responsibility. Clearly, this council member who's violated the code in the past has no regard for the code of conduct that governs the rest of council. I expect a public apology from this council member in addition to actions by the rest of council denouncing this behavior. So the second one comes from Brittany Evans. And her comment is, Larry Pittman's email regarding the discrimination protection proposal has been making the rounds, and like most of his opinions, is embarrassing for those he represents. He has called Black Lives Matter protesters thugs and vermin and has compared Lincoln to Hitler. The discrimination protection proposal is set to protect minorities from people like Larry Pittman, people who hate, are scared, and discriminate against anyone who are not like them. You have agreed to a Transgender Day of Remembrance proclamation, so you know these communities matter. Please don't be bullied by groups with loud voices that tell you that inclusiveness is bad. The last one I have actually has several questions in it, and this is from Todd Langford. His first question is, what is the status of the retention pond on Stallings at the new neighborhood? It looks filled up and have not seen any work done in weeks. They were pumping water out at one point. The second part of this is, when will construction on 2 roundabouts on Stallings begin? And the last question is, why was a traffic signal installed at Saddle Creek and 49 for a road that doesn't exist? Traffic signal faces non-existing road next to Harrisburg Funeral and Cremation. That's all I have.
So I'm assuming Scott can at least respond to the second one, since there was questions I think should be easily answered. But fair.
Yeah, we can give a quick response to those. And if either Rob or Sushil are online and can answer the first one related to the retention pond on Stallings Road, I'll let them do those. But the second 2 questions, roundabout construction, I think that's also something that planning and engineering may be better left to respond to. I do believe that there were plans for the roundabout constructions to be taking place during the summertime when school is not in session, as to alleviate any traffic congestion on Stallings Road. As far as the Saddle Creek stoplight, Saddle Creek and Highway 49, I assume is the intersection that's being described. That was necessitated by the rail project several years ago. It was decided that it was necessary for Saddle Creek and the logistical companies and other facilities that operate down Saddle Creek Road. They have thousands of employees that come in and out of that roadway there. So it was necessary to have a stoplight. There's also an approved subdivision on the north side of 49 that will also utilize that stoplight. That project just has not been constructed yet, but that stoplight was installed by NCDOT. Sushil or Rob, do you guys have any ability to answer the other 2 questions?
Yeah, I'll do my best here, and Sushil can jump in if he wants to. As far as the stormwater control device on Stallings Road, it isn't a retention pond yet. These projects go in phases, and first, for erosion and sediment control, they put in sediment traps. And so it's designed to catch all the mud and muck and everything that comes off and kind of fill up. And then they pump off the water and muck that silt out. It stops that silt from getting into the rivers and into the waterways. So as far as when it'll be converted at the end of the project or thereabouts. So usually about 70% or 80%, those become a permanent stormwater control feature, which has seeded slopes, and it'll have a fountain in it, and be clear water and that type of stuff. And it'll be substantially bigger, I think, than that sediment pond there. So I think that was the first one. And what was our
Roundabout construction?
Yeah, summer of this year. The Shea Holmes project is gearing up to start in summer, and the Harmony project is right there about at the same time. So the one at Shea Holmes will maintain an opening, so they'll have 2-way traffic open on non-working hours and 1-way flagger traffic, so that you don't have both of them closed, which was an issue when those were getting permitted.
All right, thank you. So before I go to the two names that we have emails on, I'm going to ask for those that are in the Zoom session, if you want to hit the little raise your hand button, I'll go down the list of the ones that have their hand raised. I see there's already 3 and one of them is actually on my list. While I'm queuing that one up, you guys can click that raise your hand if you wish to speak. So I'm going to go to Mallory Cottle. If you want to come off mute, you're first up.
Hi, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me this evening. Thank you, Mary Perez, for your information that you shared and provided. And thank you also to Pastor King for sharing his point of view on the proposed ordinance as well. After reading the ordinance, well, first of all, a little bit about me. My name is Mallory Caudill. I'm native to Harrisburg, North Carolina. Been here my entire life. I'm also a business owner in Harrisburg, North Carolina. My father and I own Morgan Realtors on Highway 49. So I'm coming to you as a citizen of your town with my concerns. I'm not as an outsider. I had 3 major concerns with the proposed ordinance that I want to discuss. And first of all, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that I completely agree that discrimination is not okay, that all of our citizens should be treated equally. There should not be any bullying, nothing that keeps these people from feeling any less in our community. But the main considerations I think we need to take in are, number one, the town of Harrisburg has no structure in place to handle these complaints. What happens with a complaint that's filed? Who does it go to? Who then processes the complaint? We don't have a police system. We don't have a court system. If someone wants to appeal the complaint, who handles that? The town really just doesn't have any kind of structure in place at the current time to handle these complaints. And when I hear about larger municipalities like the city of Concord, the city of Kannapolis, turning away these ordinances right now, it makes me wonder why. You know, if they have the police, they have the courts, and they're still turning away from wanting to take this on, is the town of Harrisburg really overstepping its boundaries by trying to do so without the structure in place? My second issue is that this ordinance is very broad and vague. It really is going to open the town up to many lawsuits. I want to give you one example on specific verbiage that doesn't allow any exemptions for churches, religious organizations, or nonprofits. Let's say a homosexual couple wants to get married in one of our churches, and the church says it goes against our beliefs to do so. At that point, the church could be fined $500 a day until they agree to do it. Well, speaking with the church, I'm a member of Providence Baptist in Harrisburg, and I know that they have spoken with their attorneys, and it's a very clear-cut case that if that was taken to court, the town of Harrisburg would lose. Meanwhile, the town of Harrisburg's had to put up money in attorney fees, court fees. Where is that tax money coming from? It's coming from our taxpayers, right? The other side of that, I agree with Mary Perez, you should not be discriminated. So they filed a complaint, and the town of Harrisburg says, well, Mary, we have no ground to stand against these churches because federal law protects them. So Mary files the complaint, and then Mary sues the town of Harrisburg because the town of Harrisburg is not following through on the ordinance that they've passed themselves. It's kind of a lose-lose situation for the town. Either way, the town is going to be dragged into court, dragged through lawsuits, lots of attorney fees and trial fees that the citizens of Harrisburg will be paying for. My third issue is that it's not really needed. We already have federal laws in place to protect all of these protected classes. If someone has an issue with a business, they need to report that. They can, and they have that right. And I really do not appreciate businesses discriminating against the people in this town. But until the people start filing these reports, who's going to police it? The laws are there. The laws are there to protect, but they're not being enforced because nobody's reporting it. As a real estate professional, I know very clearly what the rules are with the protected classes and discrimination. We do property management, we help buyers and sellers, but we do not allow discrimination in any way, shape, or form. And I would expect if someone saw us doing that, they would report us right away, and that we would be in trouble with the real estate commission for that. So I encourage the citizens, if you see discrimination, report it. But the way the ordinance stands as is does not allow for exemptions for churches, religious organizations, or nonprofits, and really opens the town of Harrisburg up to a can of worms with potential lawsuits down the road. And which protected class at the end of the day is more important? We look at this list of protected classes in the ordinance, and we're focusing on the LGBTQ plus community, but religion is also mentioned as one of these protected classes. So when the complaints start coming in, who's going to dictate which complaint has a valid stance and which one is not? It just really seems nonsense to me to open the town up to this potential litigation. What I would recommend that the town do is pass a resolution that states very clearly, we are not going to stand for discrimination. Our community, every citizen is important and valuable, and we are not going to tolerate that. But going to the ordinance step, $500 a day fines, misdemeanors, that is pushing it too far outside of the town's jurisdiction and outside of what the town of Harrisburg should be handling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valerie. We're going to go to Artie Hartzell, since you emailed. We'll go to Artie next, and keep those hands coming, and we'll go down the list. And if anybody's on the line and not on Zoom, we'll hit you right after the hand raises. Artie? Let's see, is he still on there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Artie Hartzell. I received my undergrad and graduate degrees in social work at UNC Charlotte, and I was born and raised in Cabarrus County. I went to Central Cabarrus High School and spent a lot of my time in Harrisburg. My doctors were in Harrisburg, my friends lived there, and I shopped and ate in Harrisburg. In the LGBTQ community, we have what's called gay flight, which is a phenomenon of LGBT people leaving our hometowns when we come of age. We go somewhere more accepting or more physically safe. We go to college and don't come back. Some people hop a train and leave forever. Talented, smart people vanish from towns and take their culture and potential economic impact with them. When I was 11, I knew I was part of the LGBTQ community. I didn't know there was a possibility of a future where I could be true to myself until I left Cabarrus County. Some of the most loving people live there, and I'm thankful to have grown up there, to have played recreational sports, to have gone to great public schools and a loving church. I knew if some people found out about me, I would be rejected, denied service and access. I saw violent homophobia multiple times when I lived in Cabarrus County. Even in your home, you may not know if your community will affirm your right to get married, to not be denied service at a restaurant or hotel, to work without threat of firing for who you are, to live without the threat of physical harm. My first job was in Carolina Mall when I was 16. It wasn't the last job I had where I thought I had to lie when I was asked about my personal life for fear of repercussions. Now I have a family and I'm a bonus parent. I want to know that our child will not face, I want to know that our child will not face discrimination or see her family discriminated against because of the love that has shaped her home for 11 years. I want towns to stop bleeding talent as LGBT young people leave for safer horizons. I want all of us to live and work together with appreciation of the diversity that makes our town strong. There's a lot of misinformation flying around. There are no federal protections for LGBTQ people in public accommodations or housing. There is no recording mechanisms for those experiences. Professional organizations may hold their members accountable, but there are no federal protections. Religious liberties are enshrined in our Constitution and are protected in ordinances like these that are passing across the state, and they're existing over 300 nationwide. So we know that religious liberties are protected. Churches will not be forced to do anything they don't believe in. We have resources to help the city council through these types of questions, and I'm always open to working with Mary and the council on those issues. For now, I hope that when you have the votes on council to pass a comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance, you will then bring one up for a vote. Thank you for allowing folks to speak to you about our experiences. I look forward to the future for when Harrisburg is as beautiful as we know it is, and know that one day we will be all welcome here. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. I'm going to move down the list to G. Palmer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for letting me speak. I live here in Harrisburg over on Parallel Drive. I just want to point out one thing. Source from the Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is the ranked #1 United States hospital system by U.S. News and World Report in 2019 and 2020, and they're often at the top or near the top of that list over time. Regarding transgenderism, they identified transgender dysphoria as a feeling of discomfort and distress that might occur in people whose gender identity differs from their sexual assigned at birth or sex-related physical characteristics. Transgender and gender nonconforming people might experience gender dysphoria at some point in their lives, but not everyone is affected by that. But importantly, they say gender dysphoria is a diagnosis listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders published by the American Psychiatric Association. Some people may dispute that that is a psychological disorder or not. You know, as a person who has 2 LGBTQ siblings, I feel for people who may experience discomfort in society and perceive slights in their service or how people may look at them or talk about them. However, passing an ordinance to saddle our businesses in Harrisburg with the responsibility and the financial liability of hiring based upon LGBTQ status is not right. It seems unconstitutional to me that we would force our businesses, which we need in our community, to adhere to something that they may be fined $500 a day. I think it's fair to say too that some of our largest business partners in town probably already have LGBTQ accommodations built into their systems. So, and that's good for them. I mean, it's their right to do that and hire who they wish. But I think also other businesses have the right to hire based upon performance and what skills a person brings to the table, not based upon a status that's registered down at the courthouse or to City Hall. So I hope that I discourage you from passing something like this in the town of Harrisburg. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. We're going to move down the list. Layla Saliba.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I really appreciate y'all giving me the space to speak. So, like many of you, I have grown up here. I attended Hickory Ridge Middle and Hickory Ridge High School, and I've benefited from the fantastic schools here. I currently attend NC State University as a social work and a psychology student. I'm NC State's nominee for the Truman Scholarship, one of the most prestigious undergraduate scholarships in the nation, and I wouldn't have received this honor without my incredible teachers in high school, especially Ms. McLean and Mr. Isley. So as a person with a disability, this legislation, it directly affects me. Despite having doctor's notes for my condition, multiple surgeries, and being registered with my school's disability office, I still face discrimination for a medical condition that I cannot control. And some may ask, there is federal legislation in place. You're good, you're fine. To which I say, yes, there is, but it does not go far enough. For example, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, that only applies to businesses with over 15 employees. Businesses with lower amounts of employees are free to do as they wish. If we are to make Harrisburg truly accessible and enjoyable for all, we need to protect our disabled community members. It's not only the right thing to do, it's the moral thing to do. And I believe that we have an obligation to make this town accessible for everyone. Thank you for speaking. I relinquish my time.
Thank you. Next up, BCC Senior Presentations 2020. You can come off mute, BCCA. Oh, there you go. BCCA, senior presentations. I see you're off mute. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. All right, we're going to skip past BCCA. We're going to go down to Jay Horn.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Janice Horn, 3723 Ayrshire Court, Harrisburg, North Carolina, 28075. I've been a resident of Harrisburg for 20 years. I have my concerns about the ordinance of prohibiting discrimination. This new ordinance will discriminate against my freedom of religion because I will be required to accept what is against my belief. If it is to protect everyone, I don't see where it protects the newborn baby, the unborn baby, and my personal religious views. God made us the way we are, and it doesn't matter how we dress, what surgeries we have, or what we want to be. We are still what God made us. Churches, schools, locker rooms, and many more will be required to allow males in the female locker rooms, females in the male locker rooms. I don't feel that this is a safe environment for our children and our grandchildren. When it comes to the women's sports, why would a female want to compete to do her best when the best can't be good enough? Women's rights are moving in the wrong direction, and we have fought the hard and too long for this to be taken away. This move is nothing but Marxism because it destroys what it means to be a female. It eliminates the value of the individual and our uniqueness as individuals. You may ask, what's Marxism or Marxist movement? It is the goal of social policing of our language, is thought control. This is the force behind the gender agenda and have utilized Marxist techniques in silencing anyone who disagrees. Marxism has three objectives: dehumanize all persons, demoralize all relationships, decivilize all institutions, including the church. So at this time, I'm asking that when the ordinance is voted on, that you will please vote no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Going to Cedric Williams. Cedric, can you hear me? Cedric Williams. All right, we're going to skip past Cedric. If you want to hang on and keep your hand raised, we're going to go to Advent Lutheran Church.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually, my name is Deborah Eford, and the last time I was on Zoom, it was with my church. So I'm not really representing my church here. I'm representing myself. So I'm sorry, if I could see how to change that on here, I would change it to my name, Deborah Eford. I have been a resident of Harrisburg for 34 years. I have served as a Cabarrus County school counselor, and I've known firsthand the struggles that young teens face, especially those with sexual identity issues. And these kids just want to be accepted for who they are and treated the same as everyone else. And if you want to bring religion into it, my religious faith compels me to speak up for the marginalized. So I ask for us to take the moral high road of being open-minded and accepting, and let Harrisburg lead the way for the rest of the county and adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Cedric. If you're still out there, try that again. Cedric
Hello.
Williams.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the time to speak to you. My name is Cedric Williams. I live on Arborview Drive in Harrisburg, North Carolina, and I've lived here for the last 8 years. And one of the reasons I moved to Harrisburg, because I found Harrisburg to be a community of the best people I've ever met. The least discriminatory, most open-minded, people always willing to help their neighbors. If a tree falls on their property, people just get their chainsaws out and they come help you cut it up. Those are the people I've encountered in Harrisburg, some of the best I've ever met. I wanted to give you a overview of some look into the Incumbency Margins Corporation, and I went through and looked at their mission statement. And the interesting thing there was the Incumbency Margins Corporation contradicts its own mission in the second sentence of its mission statement. How do you foster unity and inclusion in a community by dividing the community into different identity groups, whether they're lesbian, whether they're gay, whether they're transgender, whatever? We're all North Carolinians, we're all Americans, we're all from Harrisburg. Identity politics and group tribalism are simply neo-Marxist sleight of hand. And all of this is being sold under the guise of superior empathy and equality. No Harrisburg community member should be fined for refusing to engage or do business with somebody based on their emotional reaction to a situation rather than rational fact. It is my ask of the council to vote no on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the BCCA senior presentation. So you went away and came back on. BCCA presentation. We're going to skip past you again. If you want to come back around, I'll hit you at the very end. DH. We're going to go to DH. State your name and address.
Yeah, Council, thank you. This is David Henderson. Address is 7944 Woodmere Drive, Harrisburg, North Carolina. I'm really grateful for y'all's attention to the issue. I want to state up front that I'm a very strong believer in the created dignity and value of every single person, born and unborn, regardless of life choices, decisions, identities, etc. We want to affirm that and believe that we live in a community that affirms those things about each other. It's a difficult decision when competing interests happen, and no society has quite been perfect at prioritizing those ordinances and the difficulties of different parties of different classes, different groups of people, and so forth. I think the challenge that I have with this ordinance, even though I'm a pastor here in town and have some concerns regarding religious liberties, I do think that many of those are spelled out pretty well in the Constitution and the First Amendment, as well as other protections that have been there, which I would think if this ordinance is passed, would face some stiff challenges from state legislation where it has not passed, and federal courts as well. But honestly, I don't even want to speak about the religious freedom aspect of it. The reality is an ordinance like this that has passed in different communities, particularly in the state of Connecticut, has led to a devaluing of women's rights, particularly in relation to women's sports and women's athletics. My daughter is a shortstop for UNC Charlotte, and looking forward to starting the season this year, coming up this Saturday. I realize that the things that she's been able to enjoy, even though I'm pretty confident she could compete with most of the male teams out there, as a dad, that's a preference. The reality is what's happening in Connecticut right now is in track and field, there are two biological males that are, because of an ordinance exactly like this, that are robbing the rights of females to have the right to compete against other biological females. And so it's a difficult decision, again, when there's competing agendas and competing realities. And I would just ask that you take those measures into consideration when you're considering an ordinance like this, because of what you tend to devalue and discriminate against while you're passing what is supposed to be an anti-discrimination ordinance. It's a difficult decision. I appreciate the situation that you're in. And I would just say that you would, consider the realities that are happening right now, particularly in the state of Connecticut, in regard to women's athletics. And God bless you guys.
Thank you. All right, going back to the attendees, I think BCC dropped back out again, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not seeing any more. Do we have any folks on the phone that wish to speak that are not on the Zoom session? Speak up. Then last call for anybody that's in the Zoom session, raising your hand to get noticed and we can call you. All right, hearing none, we're going to move along the agenda. Thank you very much. We're going to move to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt.
A motion on the floor.
Second. Smith, second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron?
Aye.
Councilman John? Aye. Councilman Rodney?
Aye.
Councilman Ian?
Aye.
Councilman Rick?
Aye.
Councilman Troy?
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Moving to public hearing to consider annexation of 6 parcels off Rocky River Crossing Road, associated Shelby Woods residential subdivision.
Over the manager.
Oh, I'm sorry, John, I missed the whole second. You're right. Let's do that first.
All right, Mayor and Council, good evening. Just want to quickly, obviously following myself will be the finances monthly report, as well as an update from our law enforcement division on happenings around town that they're seeing. My only item this evening, though, we discussed in our January 30th council retreat that we had an establishment of sort of goals and priorities for the town over the upcoming year that we would work towards. And so we have consolidated those goals and have those to be presented here to you tonight. And I'm going to try to bring them up on the screen here. I can't do a full screen, so my apologies there. But again, this list was created with the council and management team as we went through our very first council retreat. These were provided to council over the weekend. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those and they do jog your memory. Each of these items are items that we gained consensus on through that council retreat and just want to present those for approval tonight. If there needs to be any edits or changes to any of these, we'll gladly take those at the recommendation and support of the council. And once these are solidified, we will actually publish this on the town website. It'll be a good tracking measure for us as we move forward in the year. We'll also use it in our budget development process in the event that any budgeted funds are needed for any of these priorities. So at this time, I'll take any comments or questions that you may have with this list.
Any questions or comments? All right.
All right, fantastic. We'll implement these as our staff priorities looking forward over the next year. So thank you guys so much for that. No other further updates from me. I'll turn it over to Brian Lee with our finance department for his update.
Thank you, Haynes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Right, so I've got your finance report for the month of January, and this is our typical revenue and expense dashboard. We implemented an update this month, and that is showing you the change from the prior month. Just to try to give you a little more context, every time you see these tables, you want to find out a little bit more about them at a quick glance, and so hopefully that's helpful. If it's not something that you're interested in, I know we went through a lot of iterations of how this looked last year. So if that's not something that's helpful, it obviously can be backed back out. But I think it does give some decent context about what has happened most recently. So you see that we did have good tax collections in January, receiving about 23% of the budget. The general fund and stormwater are both in the green for revenue this year, and the water and sewer fund is only behind by about 2%. And that's typical as we go through the winter season. All department expenditures are in the green except for council, which we've covered every month this year due to the CARES funds. We should be rounding the corner on that in the next month or two and get the council budget back into the yellow or green. But all other departments are pretty well under the 58% mark after January. Sorry, and here's the rest of our general fund departments and water, sewer, and stormwater, as well as salaries townwide. You see that those are at 51% for the year, and all other departments are in great shape at this point. This is our project update, and you'll see the same arrows with the progress from the last month on both the percent of budget spent and the percent of the project complete. So hopefully you'll find that helpful. The Holcomb Woods soccer fields are progressing still, but we are still waiting on the NCDEQ permits. But the Parks Department has gotten a couple of other balls rolling on that project, so we should see some progress as soon as that permit is provided. The Far Mill deconstruction, they had a site meeting on the 3rd with the vendor, and Parks Department is working with Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee, as well as some council members and some other interested parties to try to get a plan together for that project over the next couple months. So we should see some movement as soon as some of those decisions are made. You see that the HVAC project for the fire department was started and completed, went from 0 to 100% there. And the sewer rehab was also completed. It was at 99% last month. These are our multi-year projects in design. Not too much movement on these this month. The train station progressed at its normal schedule, and you see a little activity on the transportation bonds for an intersection improvement. Our multi-year projects that are in the construction phase did have quite a bit of movement, both on the finance side as well as finishing the project. I'll point out that Britley and Francis had some really good movement this month, as Francis Haven pump station decommissioning has reached 95%. The water lines were finished last month, I'm sorry. Stormwater also picked back up. It had had a little bit of a delay, but picked back up steam and should be finished this month. Our equipment projects, we had held off on the top 3 and the station alerting equipment until January. Those have all been ordered, so we don't have any financial outlay yet, but those have moved along, and all the equipment has been ordered. The station alerting equipment for the fire department went live on February 1st, and from what I've heard from Chief Dunn, that is going very smoothly. Here are our vehicle projects. Every one of these was also held off on until January 1st. We have movement on almost everything. The dump truck is on the agenda tonight for a capital swap with a different fiscal year. And then the Explorer just hasn't been started yet, but all the rest have been ordered or spec'd out and quoted from the dealership. And you do see that Parks and Rec received their vehicle and placed it in service as well. So they were really quick on theirs. Our professional services project, we did have a pay app on the ADA plan assessment, but other than that, not too much progress on these as they sit in the last third of the project stage. I wanted to provide, again, as a reminder, the budget schedule over the next month or two. And so we have a couple draft workshops that are coming up. Wednesday, the 17th at 6 o'clock will be our first workshop, and that will contain council, town clerk, administration, finance, and communications. On Thursday, February 25th at 6 o'clock, we will pick up with human resources, information technology, and planning and economic development. In March, on Thursday, March 11th, we'll have our third workshop, which will have fire department, our deputies, and parks and recreation. And then the last draft one, budget workshop, will be all of Rob's departments: engineering, streets, environmental protection, water and sewer, and stormwater. So that'll be a big one on March 23rd at 6 o'clock. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Hey, Rob, this is Rick Russo. I just want to know, why would you put something on the agenda from Public Works when the even swap was so close and we were even getting money off of it. I think that should have been put on the consent agenda. I don't think that, I hope I'm not speaking for all my constituents on council, but we're really not worried about pencils and erasers, and it was an even swap, or it was less money. So I just think it'd have been easier for everybody to put it on a consent agenda.
Okay, understood.
Any other questions? Anything else? Thanks. Good, Brian?
All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn it over now to the law enforcement. I don't know if Lieutenant Meesemer or Sergeant Sloop are available to provide us a quick update.
It's going to be Lieutenant Meesemer. Good evening, everyone. Just to give you a brief update, in January of 2021, our average non-emergency response time was 7 minutes and 18 seconds. We were involved in 2,871 law enforcement related activities, 2,540 home and business security checks, 236 traffic stops. The only increase in crime we have seen in January is car breaking and or enterings. And I'm going to stress the breaking and or entering part. They're all enterings where Harrisburg residents tend to not lock their vehicles. We haven't had any where it was a forceful entry. It was mainly jiggling the door locks and folks entering and stealing whatever valuables they can see immediately. We did have a brief rash in January of catalytic converters being stolen, but we have made an arrest in that, along with Charlotte, who also made an arrest. So we should see a decrease in February. Other than what I've mentioned, there's no other activity to report. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Appreciate it.
No thanks. All right, I just have a few things. The Equity Task Force has released its first survey. It's been going for about 3 weeks. We're over 400 surveys returned. That is our police survey. So we're pretty excited that we've got such a good response rate so far. I haven't seen any of the data yet. What will happen is we will shut it off in the next week or so. It's going to hit the water bill. We'll leave it up just a little bit longer, then we're going to shut it down. Our hope is to combine the next 2 surveys that we have, one's for education, one's for health, into one survey going out instead of 2 subsequent surveys. So hopefully by March, we'll be able to roll that out. Also in March, we hope to have the police subcommittee come and give a presentation on what we've learned or what actions may or may not be taken as a result of what we learned. So just basically a presentation on where that group is, and we'll have the subsequent groups do that as well. But the police group is a little bit ahead of the others, so we'll be doing that hopefully in March. Also, the Sustainability Advisory Board met as a work session when we had ours, I guess it was a couple weeks back or last week. So they're making some good progress and coming up with some goals for Harrisburg from a sustainability perspective. We are going to start back the Greenleaf program. I don't have the exact dates on when they're thinking to start to roll that out, but that's back up in front of us. Hopefully, as we're coming out of this COVID mess that we're in, we can start inquiring with our businesses about trying to become more sustainable in the things that they do. So with that, I will go to council for any comments. Anyone?
Since we have a lot of people on, just remind that all the budget meetings are open to the public. Remind them that the planning and zoning is the second Tuesday of every month that they're invited to. Park and Recs is the 4th Monday of every month that they're invited to. There's usually a neighborhood development meeting the 3rd Thursday of every month, and they're invited to. And there's also the fire advisory board they're invited to. But all these, except for the fire advisory board, are able to be handled through Zoom and should be able to find that information on our website.
Thank you, Rodney. Anyone else?
Hey, Mayor, this is Diamond. I also wanted to, with the reminders, let everyone know that our next community chat is on Thursday, April 29th at 6 p.m. So you should go to the website and get that Zoom link. I think previous residents who joined the previous community chat the end of January really enjoyed the information that was shared and thought it was very useful.
Thank you, Diamond. Anyone else? Last call, council. We're going to move to our first public hearing, consideration of annexation of 6 parcels off of Rocky River Crossing Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The public hearing in front of you tonight is to hold it for Selby Woods residential subdivision. There are 6 parcels associated with this annexation request. The properties off of Rocky River Crossing Road, off of Moorhead Road, behind the Rocky River Crossing neighborhood there. We received the petition from the applicant. Again, this is voluntary annexation where the applicant chooses to be part of town of Harrisburg corporate limit. As I mentioned earlier, there are 6 parcels and those parcels are listed on your screen. These 6 parcels are currently on the town's ETJ, which is our planning jurisdiction, even though they are not in the town limit, but the planning rules still apply for those parcels. A rezoning is not required for these parcels. The applicant is intending to subdivide and build single-family homes under the existing RM1, which is residential medium density zoning. So there's no rezoning, it's simply an annexation to become part of the town of Harrisburg corporate limit, so they can be connected to town utilities. The public notice and public notification on the newspaper and to the adjoining property owners was done as required by law. Here's the map of those parcels off of Rocky River Crossing Road. Again, and pretty simple. There is no rezoning, no discussion of density at this point. Simply taking the property off of ETJ and putting it into the town of Harrisburg corporate limit once the annexation is approved by town council. Tonight, we're requesting council to hold the public hearing. We're not taking action tonight. The action will be at the March 8th town council meeting. With that, this one was a pretty simple ask of the council. I'll take any questions you may have.
So we're just going to open the public hearing and close it with no action. Is that what I heard?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right, thank you, Sushil. I'm going to open up the public hearing for those speaking for or against this annexation of these parcels, for or against. If you want to raise your hand in the chat, or if you're on the phone, just simply speak up. Mr. Bobbitt. We're going to go to L. Bobbitt.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leslie Bobbitt. I am a resident on Mapleview Place, which is directly adjacent to the proposed property lines being annexed. I guess for me, my address is 5908 Mapleview Place. And when you look at the map, I think I have the largest property line that would be affected by this annex. So it's the last property on the parcel ending in 172. My property pin is 5508405225, which is the last property on Mapleview that is adjacent. When you do say you want to annex to put medium density residents, I guess I would want to understand what does that mean for the property lines that are adjacent to it? Because my concern, this proposal came up quite a few years ago. And when we saw the proposal, it was very small properties, like a quarter of an acre. And we have somewhere between a third and a half or a little under a half. So when I looked at the proposal years ago, it was like almost 2.5 properties that would be designated behind my one. So I guess I would want to understand, what does it mean when you look at this and you want to annex to add the 16 different properties to this map? So my concern is really around the number of properties that will be adjacent and the fact that they would not have, or will they have, a homeowners association that will ensure property maintenance and etc. So that is my concern.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Anyone on the phone? None. I'll close the public hearing and we'll go to council for deferment.
I think we had a couple pop in there at the last second.
I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry, we're gonna undo what I just said. We're gonna go to LM. You can state your name and address.
Laura Moore, 5139 Rocky River Crossing Road. Would just like more information about like the architectural standards of the way it's currently zoned versus the ETJ versus the incorporation into the town, if that will improve the architectural standards such as brick fronts.
Okay, thank you for that. We will, somebody can reach back out.
Yeah, it's up to you whether you want to.
Well, if you have that information now, we can probably just quickly do a quick update.
Yeah, Sushil, if you want to run through the rest of the items, Sushil may be able to provide an update.
Well, let's do that at the end then, and we'll go through, maybe Tony Jenshecki has another question that may get answered at the same time. So we'll go to Tony. LM, I'm assuming you're done. If you want to hang on, if you're not, we'll see if we get those answered, and then we'll go to Tony next.
Hi, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm actually was listening to the other thing earlier and just happened to stay on a little longer. I'm a vice president HOA for Rocky River Crossing, and my name is Tony Jensky, and I'm on Roseway. And I just want to kind of mirror what the woman was saying on the street going, the last cul-de-sac. When I was told about this development in itself, it was supposed to only be like 5 houses with 3 of them being over like 1.5 acres, 2 acres. I mean, that's why we were like, oh, that's pretty cool. With 2 houses sitting there now, and just hearing and just seeing it being a larger development in that little area. Was that ever told to anybody, or any letters went out stating that it had changed from what we had originally heard?
So we'll hold on to that question, and we're going to go to Sushil, see if we can answer everyone's questions.
Yeah, Mayor, let me know when the public hearing is closed and I'll be happy to.
Okay, is there anybody else wishing to speak? And we'll have Sushil come back on to answer the couple questions that just popped out. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? You guys help me look, because obviously this popped in fast. All right, here now we're going to close the public hearing. We'll go to council for consideration / deferment, but first we'll go to Sushil to see if you can answer a few of those questions.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions came up about the previous project that came in front of the council. I think the reference is to the Jack Elliott's property that's behind these parcels. That was a rezoning request that came in front of the council several years ago and was denied. This property you see here were not part of that proposal. And also what is being proposed here is simply an annexation. The property owner has by right ability to subdivide and build homes. So it's not a rezoning. So we don't have the ability to control the architecture of these properties. But in terms of lot sizes, if you look on the screen, those 2 lots that where 2 homes are currently being built, it will mirror basically those lot sizes. So minimum of 15,000 square foot lots. Some of them are higher, but there may be some that are 15,000, but mostly will be around 18,000 or so square foot lots. In terms of homeowners association, I believe there will be Selby Woods Homeowners Association that will govern these homes once they are built. And again, this is not part of a rezoning. It had not been in front of the council before. They're not asking for rezoning. This is simply an annexation, this changing the jurisdiction from the ETJ to come to be fully part of the town of Harrisburg corporate limit.
Sheila, do you mind giving reference to what a 15,000 square foot lot is? You know, most people can picture a quarter acre, third acre, half acre type lot. What is a 15,000 square foot lot compared to?
Compared in terms of?
How would you generalize that related to quarter acre lot, half acre lot, third acre lot? Generally.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. So the term is it's basically third acre lot, close to third acre lots.
Thank you.
And that is in compliance with the RM1 standard. So because it is by right, they have to at minimum meet that requirement to subdivide these parcels.
Any other questions for Sushil? We'll go to council for deferment.
So I just want to make sure and hopefully clarify for some people that out of this acreage, well, I know it's right, by right, they can develop what they want, but we look at most of the lots will be third acre lots. And so that last lot is 3 acres. Then we know there could be 15 lots in there, 15 homes.
So all of the lots will be fronting Rocky River Crossing Road, so they'll have a driveway. There will be no lots that will face or have a driveway facing the existing neighborhood. All of these homes will basically follow the pattern of those 2 lots you see on the left-hand side of your screen. So it will replicate that all the way to the other end of the property line. Whatever is remaining behind those lots will be open space and will be used for a stormwater pond.
So Sushil, there will be no internal streets to the subdivision of these parcels. Everything will be fronting Rocky River Crossing Road, and they'll have that minimum 75 foot width requirement on the front of the lot, correct?
That is correct. The only question there is a discussion they've been having with the property owner behind, if there is a room to provide an access road for that property for future project, they may come back with that, but we haven't seen anything being submitted to us yet.
Gio, I have a question with regards to a statement you made a few minutes ago, and I don't know that we have any say one way or the other. It does seem a bit confusing why they would do their own HOA when they're on the front entrance of Rocky River Crossing. And I guess we don't have any kind of ordinances or laws or rules or whatever that they would have to join Rocky River Crossing.
No, we do not have any directive ordinance in that regard, Councilmember Smith. It is a lot of times when a new subdivision or homes are built, they create their own. There are times when the new subdivision may reach out to the existing homeowners association to join, but that rarely happens because the existing board members usually don't allow a newcomer to come and join them.
It just seems a little concerning since they're on the main entrance. They could, if their HOA requirements were different, say less than what Rocky Rivers were, it could, I guess I see where it could hurt the existing HOA. Have we had a situation like that in the past?
Nothing that I can recall, but every homeowners association is like you said, governed by their own board, and they have their own rules and regulations. But on top of that, if there are violations, code enforcement violation on any of the homes, whether they are part or not part of the HOA, we come into play in enforcement as well. So if there is a concern that these properties may fall into disrepair, there are some rules in place that we can apply from a code enforcement perspective.
Councilmember Smith, we have had a situation where we've had a couple parcels subdivided that are along the entrance of a subdivision. A couple years ago, Sherborne Drive comes to mind, where the very first 2 parcels in that subdivision were subdivided, and the property owner constructed a home there, and they are not part of that HOA of that subdivision. So we have had past examples of this happening.
And Has there been any issues with that one?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not going to say that there have not been, but I'm not aware that there have been.
Thank you.
Well, the other clarification, I mean, if there seems to be a confusion that all the homes on the other side of this proposed annexation fronting Rock River Crossing are part of Rock River HOA. Those are not. Those are individual homes. They were built separate, and I don't believe they're part of any, they're not part of the Rock River Crossing HOA.
Oh, okay, thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Any other questions from council before we defer consideration? Now I'll entertain a motion to defer consideration of this annexation to next month.
So see.
Second, Smith.
Mayor, I think you're closing the public hearing.
Well, that's right. That's what I thought. I closed it. You guys started talking again. I'm going to close this public hearing, go to council for deferment of consideration.
So see.
Got a motion?
Second, Smith.
Properly seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman John. Aye. Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving to old business consideration of winning bid for old fire station.
All right. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So, got the consideration of a winning bid on Old Fire Station 2. So just to recap, Old Fire Station 2 is a 1.38 acre lot off of Rocky River Road. The building on the land is approximately 3,600 square feet, and it's currently zoned at OI, which is office and institutional. And there you can see the map with Rocky River Road frontage. So our bid process, starting back in September, I believe, we approved the property as surplus and listed it for sale. We accepted an initial offer to begin the upset bid process, and that came in at $300,000. With each bid that we got, a 10-day clock was started that allowed anyone to place a qualifying upset bid. And the definition of a qualifying upset bid is one that exceeded the previous offer by 10% of the first 1,000 and 5% of the remainder. So essentially a 5% above the previous offer. And it must come with a 5% deposit. So with each bid that we received, we started a new 10-day clock and advertised per law. We did that on the website, social media accounts, our property listing, in with our agent, our newspaper ads, and we directly contacted some of the involved parties. When we had a 10-day period that expired without someone coming in with an upset bid, that is what closed the process out for us. And now that we're at the end, we have one bid to consider. And as a town council, you can either accept this bid or decline all bids and choose to go in a different direction or start the process over again. So our winning bid was Starnes Commercial Properties at a price of $506,150. We did receive their deposit of just over $25,000. The offer came with no contingencies, conditions, or zoning request. And our closing period should be more within about 3 weeks, but we wanted to provide about 45 days so we wouldn't have to revisit this if there was some sort of administrative delay in getting it closed. So the math on the sale here is sales proceeds of $506,000. We have agent fee and an estimate for legal, title, and closing cost to have net proceeds from the sale of the fire station of about $468,000. I do want to say that we have had for a couple years plugged in the financial model $300,000 being received in fiscal year 22. So we're moving that revenue up, and we're far exceeding what we expected for the value of this property. So with that, our staff recommendation is approval of the offer to purchase Old Fire Station number 2 for $506,150 and the related budget ordinance amendments. And I have both motions on the next slide, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, Brian, what's the agent fee for 30,000? What's that? Why is that there? What's that consist of?
It's the 6% fee. So we had to have 3% for the buyer agent. And we chose to list it as well, just to try to reach more people and have it on the MLS and other websites. And he actually, our agent, did a lot of the legwork, probably had 40 or 50 showings. And so it was probably money well spent to have him facilitate everything with this sale.
Are you allowed to say who the high bidder is?
Yeah, it's Starnes Commercial Properties. And so people that are aware of who that is knows the surrounding property.
Yeah, he has the property on the corner, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to accept the $506,150 offer purchase.
Motion to accept, Mayor.
Got a motion on the floor, properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Going down the list, Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman John, Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
And the second, you gonna go back to discussing that ordinance change or the project amendment? Off the screen, how do we lose that?
I'm sorry. There you go.
Yep, there it is. So we also need a motion to approve the 2021 budget ordinance amendments to recognize revenues and expenditures from the Sal Bill Fire Station 2. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Got a motion on the floor. Mr. Booth seconded. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron,
Aye.
John, Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the project ordinance amendment for the park redevelopment project.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm going to get my screen shared here. All right, we have a continuation on this item. So this is the Harrisburg Park project. We came to you in January looking for one amendment, and this is a continuation of that. I'm going to kind of go quickly through the first couple of slides because they're very similar to what we went over in January as far as background and purpose and all that. But currently right now, I think if you saw in Brian's presentation, we're about 91% complete with the project overall. That's with the additions that we added from January. So it's been a little math there, figuring out where we were at, adding some, figuring out the two and kind of averaging it out. But we've got it about 91% complete total. And of the base stuff that was in the base contract of the GMP, we're about 95% of that work really right about now. And we would look at finishing that up sometime in March. The purpose of the amendment was really to allow us to continue the project, get the project fully completed under the current construction schedule so that we could utilize the most efficient and effective use of the park and really get all the items out of the way as soon as possible. So what we're doing here is we're bringing back all of the items that were not included in January to really finish it up. And it's really only a handful of items. Some of them are big ticket items. So I've asked Sean Marble, our current interim Parks and Rec director, to help out with some of the discussion points on that as part of this presentation to cover really our purpose and need for those items. But those really fall into, previously we gave categories on why things were needed and what category they fell into as far as needing additional funding. And everything on tonight's agenda really falls under this last bullet item that I have here, which is items that were previously being pursued outside of the Harrisburg Park budget. So most of these things were running parallel to the GMP, things that were being pursued by the previous parks director, either through grants, sponsorships, his operational budget, and or the upcoming CIP budget for this year. Everything on this list is financial responsibility of the town, and we've had that discussion between council and staff as far as dictating responsibility for certain items. But everything you'll see tonight is a town request. This spreadsheet was given to you guys in your council package and gives a high-level overview and description and solution for each item. I'll go through these relatively quickly, but most of them, the first four all are furniture and fixtures for different areas. For the green room at the amphitheater, that wasn't included as far as the furnishings under the GMP, but obviously we're going to need that, as well as our furniture and fixtures for the splash pad, playground area, the track, as far as picnic tables, seating areas, umbrellas, things of that nature. And then we have the amphitheater sound, which is adding some additional things back in to allow for setup and staging when we do our events there. And this would just be trenching and sound pad and things like that. The one in the middle here I have is a $0, and that was because that's something that's still being negotiated as part of the project to see what our final solution is going to be there, and that's the track widening and replacement. And Sims Parkway parking, we have an alternate, which I have another slide on that'll discuss what we're recommending there and why we think that's our best solution. The next one is electric issues in the park. Again, these are just electrical upgrades to provide power throughout the park that Sean will get into here in a little bit. And then we have miscellaneous things kind of grouped into this next one. But most of these are items that are really identified by park staff as far as our fit and finish things, where our garbage cans go, needing pads, where our vehicles are going to be driving onto fields, protecting those areas so that we're not tearing them up and replacing them constantly, things of that nature. And then park scoreboard, this is again something that was pursued outside, and Sean will get into the details of that. But this would be a scoreboard for our football field. And then a PA system for the park. Again, something that was contemplated as part of the park. All of our lighting has been wired for this, and this is really the finishing product of hanging speakers and tying everything in. And then the last item we have on here is our engineering audit and closeout item, which is really a certification for the pond. That's something that we can't do ourselves. It's a conflict there. So the design engineer will do our required certifications as per NCDEQ. And this also has funding in there for ADA inspection so that we can verify all of our ramps and sidewalks are ADA compliant as they are built. And if they're not, where that responsibility lies. And as well as some updating of record drawings and our some bulletin drawings for our staircases that we approved at the last meeting if needed. So as far as a dollars and cents, that's what we really like to look at the end of the day here. I think all of these items that we bring you guys are always valuable, but we're always trying to figure out, dollars and cents, what's it mean to the project. This request is a total of $260,000. That comes on top of and this is all outside of the GMP. None of this is done with the SAM at risk contractor. These are all subcontractors that we have working on the project or for the town currently that we'll be doing ourselves, with the exception of the engineering work that is, I guess, is technically not in the GMP, but this is the design engineer that was selected as part of the GMP process. The $260,000 outside of the GMP for this request. We had 487, almost 88,000 of GMP requests in January and the $75,000 landscape amendment. So all of that added up is the 823,000 that we see in total additions and outstanding change requests. The one item I wanted to talk about, because we had brought it as a discussion point in January as a larger project, which was the angled parking that was on Sims Parkway. And sometimes people don't think of it as Sims, but this is the road that heads from the library to the very back of the fields. So we're talking about that area there. There was some parking that was canceled as part of the original scope to save some money for the project, but did cause some issues with tightness as far as our vehicles being able to get there when the place is full. So cars park on both sides parallel right now and really narrows that road down. But what we looked at when we were kind of evaluating what is the fix was a little bit more complicated. The Cobra Head lighting by Duke has already been put into that area. So we already have lighting installed. And the grade there isn't very conducive to just widening the road. So it would be a little bit more work. We'd have to relocate some storm sewer, have some retaining walls, relocate some lighting potentially. And that's not a quick process. And we would need design time after discussing this with the contractor. So we'd have to put a design together, and then it would probably take 90 to 120 days for construction. That just doesn't really work with what we're trying to do as far as the completion of the project, and obviously would be a pretty substantial cost to the town. So what we're looking at is trying some low cost revisions first. So some painting of the curb. We do have enough width there to get all the cars we need, but we need to utilize it correctly. So it may be a matter of us putting up, additional no parking, removing some parking spaces, staggering them, and just really some public education out there to get cars to make sure they're pulling over at the curb and leaving enough room in the traveled way. And as far as the widening of the road, if we pursue that project, we recommend that it be done through the capital improvement program, because that's going to cost in the neighborhood of $220,000. And because it is a 4 to 6 month project, engineering and construction included, we'd like to do that in and off season as far as athletics, so that we're not disrupting the park. We can kind of isolate that area, and then we could kind of stage our time, do engineering thoroughly, try to get our costs down. And that's even if we need the project. I would like to try that low cost improvement first. We might be able to get it to work depending on staging up some of our parking, and if that works, then this project can just go by the wayside. But if you guys are going to do it, we recommend that it be done through the CIP program and not through this park project. So with that, I am going to ask Sean to kind of take over from here and go over each of those parks requests in more detail for you guys, so that if you have any questions on that, she'll be able to answer it.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So like Rob said, just wanted to expand on some of these requests from the Parks Department. So the first piece of this would be the trenches and the concrete pad for the sound technician. We are proposing to install 3 trenches across the sidewalks that are currently in place on the amphitheater lawn. You can see there in the photo, I've tried to depict kind of where those trench locations would be. Essentially, when we have bands come in to perform on the stage, we've got to be able to run cabling from the stage to the location of the sound technician. And we want to try to do this in the most efficient and safest way possible. So by installing these trenches, it would allow us to lay the cables in there across the sidewalks, and those trenches would have great covering, so they would sit flush with the sidewalk. So we could run those across those trenches, and that way we would avoid creating trip hazards on our main walkways. Some of those cables would run through the lawn, but we would be able to either bury those or cover those but they would at least not be running through the main walkways on the amphitheater lawn. In addition, we are proposing a 12 by 12 foot concrete pad to be right there, as shown in the picture in the center of the lawn. That's really the ideal location for a sound technician to be set up. And that gives them a dedicated flat area to set up their sound and audio equipment that they would need during any sort of like concert or performance. Go to the next slide, Rob. The next piece would be the scoreboard that Rob mentioned. So staff is requesting a scoreboard. We predominantly would use this for our internal Pop Warner youth football program. Our plan right now would be to utilize field number 4 for our football field. And the picture here is essentially exactly what the scoreboard would look like. It would be 18 feet wide by 15 feet tall, which is an appropriate size for the size of that football field. And it also would allow for potential sponsorships. So currently we have a committed sponsor for the scoreboard who's committed to $10,000. His business name would go on the top of the scoreboard. And then we also have an opportunity for additional sponsors to go on the bottom of the scoreboard. In addition to that, the department does plan to apply for the Cabarrus County's matching incentive grant, which could potentially cover up to 50% of the project cost of the scoreboard and the installation if that was approved. And we have had luck in past years getting that grant.
Sean, if I can jump in the middle of this and ask questions, or would you like to have those questions at the end?
Oh, no, go ahead.
It's Councilman Selberg. On the sponsorship for the scoreboard, what's the duration of that sponsorship of the $10,000? How long does that last?
So that particular sponsor has asked for that to be for the life of the scoreboard because he's essentially paying for 2/3 of the cost of the actual board. Now the sponsors for the bottom portion, those would be set up in terms, and we're still working through that.
Is it the typical one of the soft drink companies on the top?
No, sir. It is actually a transport company. It is a gentleman who participates, his children participate in our program currently.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So moving on, so this is the electricity component for the park, and this is broken into 3 sections. So the first section is the scoreboard. We obviously need electricity for the scoreboard. There is not any power currently located near Field 4 that we can tie into. We've met on site with electricians, and it sounds like the best plan would be to utilize the power that is currently at the shelter located adjacent to the pond. And essentially what they would do would be to bore under that parking lot, and they would pull power up right there next to Field 4, and we would tie that into the scoreboard. The second piece for the electricity would be for the picnic shelter, and this would be the original picnic shelter that was at the top of the hill prior to mini park construction. So during construction, we did lose power to that shelter. So in order to restore power, we would have to install new service. This would obviously allow for the lights at the shelter to work, and then for any groups that are renting the shelter to have access to power that is there. Next slide, please. There you go. And then the third, probably biggest component would be the electricity for the amphitheater lawn itself. Staff's goal is to ultimately move, if not all, most of our events to Harrisburg Park, since we have all this space and these beautiful amenities now. Even though there is power there currently for the amphitheater itself, and there is power there for obviously the restrooms and the splash pad, there is not any power currently for the lawn. So as you know, when we have events, we bring in vendors, we have food trucks, we use inflatables, different things like that that we need power for. If you recall, prior to park construction, we did have 2 sub panels that were located down on the soccer and football fields, and we were able to utilize those for different events, predominantly July 4th. And then we still did have to rent generators every now and then for certain things. What staff is proposing would be to install 3 sub panels on the amphitheater lawn, and those would be spaced out in different locations so that we could use those for various electrical needs depending on the setup of the event. And that would hopefully allow us to not be able to not have to rent generators moving forward. We'll go to the next slide, please. One of those sub panels would be needed if we do end up purchasing an additional Christmas tree for the park. One thing in order to have these sub panels is we would have to install an additional transformer. Unfortunately, the transformers that are currently at the park, after meeting with Duke Power, they do not have the correct voltage we would need. So part of this proposal includes an additional transformer that would be installed next to the current transformer that is located adjacent to the playground. We would install a concrete pad that transformer would sit on. I did provide a little bit of a cost estimate here of what we typically spend on generators every year, which is not too much. However, this is when we also had power available to us. So every year for July 4th, or even for some of our smaller events that we had here behind Town Hall, we had power and then we just filled in with generators where needed. If we move all of our events to the park and we don't have any sort of power, we would essentially have to rent generators for all of our events. Next slide, please.
Sean, could I ask a question on those panels?
Yes, sir.
Would those panels be sub-metered? I know we're considering looking at sort of renting out the venue. I don't know if it's standard practice to require that they, reimburse us for power. I guess the main question is, will they be sub-metered or no?
No, so there would be 1 meter at the main transformer. Does that answer your question? And we really haven't, and we haven't gotten.
Yeah, it answers my question. I don't know if that's a consideration that maybe we haven't thought of or not, and we're just going to, pay the bill even for events that aren't ours.
We discussed the idea of putting meters on each panel. We were trying to, in the long term, save and having to pay like monthly fees for each individual meter.
Right, understood. Thank you.
Sean, this is Councilman Russo. Could we just add that into the price of somebody renting the park or using the facility?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we currently charge for lights if a group is utilizing ball fields, so that may be something that we include in the fee structure.
Might be just easier than making it all separate, maybe. Just a thought.
Yep. Yes, sir.
No, that's a good thought, Councilman Russo.
Okay. Okay. So moving on from electric, going to concrete work, as Rob had mentioned, staff is proposing concrete paths for the park. So we are requesting paths for our grills, our trash cans, and our benches. So we have 3 new shelters at the park that we'd like to have paths specifically for the grills. And then we would also have paths that we would be located throughout the amphitheater lawn, as well as down on the 4-field complex that would be utilized for benches and trash cans. And same thing, this provides just a dedicated level area for these items. It also makes maintenance of these items much more efficient. You can go to the next one. The second piece of the concrete work would be the event lawn drive entrance. So this picture is showing, this is field 5 and the parking lot located adjacent to field 5 and where that sidewalk is. So currently there is just a line of mulch right there. There's really no dedicated entryway to that field for pedestrians or vehicles. So we're proposing a 12-foot by 20-foot concrete pad be installed there. And same thing, that would be for folks that are parking there, walking out to the soccer field, or if we were having an event and we needed vehicles to be able to drive out there, there would be a dedicated access point for that. Next one. All right. And then the third piece of this concrete work would be a sidewalk connector. So the picture you're seeing is the shelter at the top of the hill at the park. On the right side, you can see a piece of sidewalk that is connected to the parking lot that's located next to field number 1. We would like to install this sidewalk. So what it would do is anyone that parked in that parking lot, whether they wanted to access the trails or whether they use that parking lot as overflow for that shelter, that sidewalk would connect them to the shelter and or the trails that are located there in the woods. And that would be about a 175-foot long piece of sidewalk. Next slide, please. And so the last and probably biggest component of this would be the PA system. Again, as Rob mentioned, so the prior project manager during construction had infrastructure put in at the park to 6 different light poles. So there are 5 light poles on the 4-field complex, and then one light pole on field number 5 that currently have conduit run to them. The long-term goal was to use that to be able to run cable and speakers for a total of 6 poles. The goal with that would be you would have essentially a park-wide PA system. So during an event like a July 4th, if you have a band on the amphitheater stage, any announcements that are made, if someone is down on the lower fields in line for a ride, they would be able to hear the announcements, they would be able to hear background music. During smaller events like an art walk or a Halloween event, a DJ would be able to plug into that PA system to make announcements and to play music. And the nice thing about this is they could plug into 1 speaker or they could utilize 2 up to all 6 of them. And they would be able to do that by utilizing the control panel at the amphitheater. It would also make it possible to make announcements during a football game. So you can plug in directly to the speakers located on field 4. You'll go to the next slide, Rob. More importantly, as like a safety component, this PA system would really allow us to make park-wide announcements. As we all know, during like a July 4th event, and I foresee us having larger events now that we have the amphitheater and we have more space, in times where we may have a lost child or we have a weather-related event or any other sort of emergency situation, this allows us to make an announcement park-wide. And there essentially are speakers on every field. We can utilize this again through the control panel located at the amphitheater stage, and we'll be able to communicate to all of our park patrons if we ever needed to find a lost child, if we needed to evacuate the park, anything along those lines. I do want to note, so the PA system is separate from like a house sound system. At this time, staff does not recommend a house sound system for the amphitheater itself. And the reason for that is because the needs that different bands have vary so much. A house sound system really wasn't going to help us with anything beyond just a very small band. Once we get into these regional and national acts that we've been bringing in for our concert series and for July 4th, it's more efficient and cost effective to bring in the equipment per show and have a professional sound and audio a company come in to run those shows. Even with having a house sound system, you've got to have the trained staff that knows how to utilize it and maintain that equipment. So I just want to be clear that the PA system is separate from what I would consider like a sound system for the amphitheater itself. I think that's the end of my portion. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Councilmember Smith here. So going back to the sponsorship, and I don't know if you would have the answer or if Haynes would, but you said the sponsor, it sounds like, is in perpetuity. So is there the contracts written where while his company may stay the same name. We still review it every X amount of years, whether it be a year, 3 years, 5 years, what have you. I mean, if the business was no longer there later on, is there an opportunity to take that name off? Because it sounds like from what you're saying, his thing is he's buying the sponsorship and it's going to stay there. I just wanted to understand how our contracts are worded in the way that we have an option, or if something unfortunate happened with that business and the reputation was a bit different than what we wanted to represent on the field. Those types of scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there is no contract yet. Right now, it's just a verbal agreement. So we can definitely include that verbiage in the contract and make sure that the town is comfortable with that as far, and as well as this person's company.
Councilman Selberg, who has the authority to approve such a sponsorship?
I mean, that ultimately any contract would be reviewed by Brian and then management. So once again, none of that has been finally approved. That's just a verbal agreement at this point.
Yeah, Sean, I can jump in with you as well. As far as taking the revenue in, we're always open to that, but it's certainly a management decision and on up to council level of the length that we want to provide that. And I haven't seen the terms of this agreement yet, but I know that they've been working on setting it up for a little bit now.
I think as we grow as a community, and we're only going to continue to get bigger, I'm going to ask Haynes that we audit our policies on sponsorships, and then we put more of an emphasis on, as this community grows, what those sponsorships are and how they're approved and how they're written in contract rather than handshake verbal agreements.
Yes, I would think, this is Councilman Dellinger, that $10,000 for a lifetime of who knows when is getting that real cheap. And then if at the bottom of that scoreboard, you're allowing also other sponsorships, it could be a competitor. And so is there something in the contract that the original $10,000 man at the top says, you can't have that at the bottom, and that's going to limit us from additional monies. So if I look at the scoreboard based on the price tonight, it's $25,000. You're looking at sponsorships and grants at $20,000. And so it would be costing us $5,000 right now.
Yes, sir, or potentially, I mean, less than that. I mean, if, but yes, around 5,000.
Okay.
Fully burdened, Mr. Dillinger, fully burdened, as we look at the maintenance and the upkeep on that, the price continues to go up. So we need to look at a fully burdened price.
Yeah, like it should not cost us anything.
Right. Not just that, but as repairs happen, bulbs burn out, we're calling service people out to fix it.
Sure.
I got to believe it's got digital boards on it when it gets hit by lightning.
So, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't want to get deep in that contract, but also that we have an option to cancel the sponsorship, either with a buyout option or something in that space, so that there's some type of mutual agreement if things change, that we could still have control over how that looks in the future.
And
Meaning
Or
the town,
if
not
the
council.
sponsor does something like, let's do YMCA in Charlotte, where on that hit the fan, they pull that name off the side of the building real fast. So we should have an option to just pull it completely off if something were to happen to that company that would distract from Harrisburg itself.
Yeah, and I think we'd need, obviously, to flush out sponsorships, and not just for this board, but how we do that townwide if we're not all on the same page with it. But I do think that it's important to remember in this, at least in this context, that the full $25,000 is going to be applied to this project. We're going to pay the full price for it under this project. Anything that comes in, if it does come in, will be shown as revenue, not as a deduct to this project. And that, I assume, have to go to council at that point, whether or not we want to accept a sponsorship, whether or not 10 is enough, too much, all of those details would come back before you. And it sounds like council probably needs to do a little bit of a workshop or brainstorming on sponsorships and how we want to structure those in the future.
So, Rodney, Councilman Dellinger, and Sean, one thing about I'm not going to get into telling you what to do about the scoreboard, but if somebody wants to put their name at the top, they can pay for that. Who cares? I don't care if a competitor's at the bottom or not. I think Brian Lee would be good to snuff that out and get all the contract stuff working. But if they want to pay the money, put their name at the top, and I really don't care who's at the bottom.
Good. All right. Well, we'll bring, I'm sure Sean or whoever we bring on board as the new director, whenever that does happen, we'll bring that to you guys whenever we get to that point. Are there any other questions on that?
This is Councilman Dellinger. So the 25,000 is the total cost in the project. So if we get revenues in as being scholarships, is that 20,000, 25,000 going to go against the principal, going to go against the interest? How will that work?
That money will actually be a contribution to the general fund. And so it will ultimately fall down to the capital reserve. So it's not going to go towards debt service on this project, but since money is fungible, you could think of it in that manner if you wanted to.
Well, I would like to, and I would hope, because it is the park project, that we would want to reduce that principal, that interest, as quickly as possible, because, over the next 20 years and with the total of the park, we're basically at 14.2 million. And I think if it's for the park, it's advertising the park, it's in the park, it should reduce the principal, or it should reduce the interest. Now, I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that.
Yeah, and I think that would be a decision that council can certainly instruct during the budget process each and every year of what you want to put towards it.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right, if there aren't any other questions, I'll move on to the last couple of slides we have here on it.
So, Rob, is this the wrong time to talk about the ADA study, or are you getting to that?
You can ask it now. I mean, I don't.
I'm happy to wait.
No, I think there's some other references, but nothing in particular. Go ahead.
So my only question is, it looks like we're potentially asking the original designer of the project to audit their own work. At one point I was told, and not by you, that the person we have under contract to do an ADA study of the entire town was going to come audit the park as well. That doesn't seem to be the case, but are there any concerns about having a conflict with the original designer auditing their own work? That's question one. And then question two would be, let's say we discover we have ADA issues. Are we prepared to decide if it was a design error or a contractor error, and where we would go from there?
Yeah, and that's a good question, and that's really what I'm anticipating by having the designer do the audit, is that the information is really not it's not subjective, right? These things are going to be measured, and the data is what the data is. What we need to do is then decide, okay, if it doesn't meet, why doesn't it meet? And if it does meet, why does it meet? And then cure those. And I think we have an obligation to give the designer an opportunity to cure if they were wrong. So if they blew a design or something, then it's up to them as far as an error and omission to make that correction. And if it was designed properly but built incorrectly, then it would be the contractor's obligation to fix that. I think the only reason that I could see that it would be a town obligation is if we made some change, some directive, explicit directive to change something from the design that the contractor then accepted. But I don't know of that offhand. But I guess that's what we're looking at, is that, you know, you have this designer that went through a thought process and designed it. They're going to have to justify that, of why it meets and how it meets. And if it doesn't, was it an error and omission, or was it built improperly? And then once we get that, we'd come up with a solution and decide, you know, who's responsible for that solution. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I appreciate giving them the opportunity. What if we got into a position where we disagreed with their interpretation? I mean, is that just a conversation that needs to happen down the road?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's not atypical. You know, so if something doesn't look appropriate when they send it, because what I'm expecting is kind of a report at the end of this to say, you know, this area meets and here's why. And there's a certain areas that we as staff have as a concern. We have other areas that, you know, the public and other employees have brought up as a concern. So those we plan on addressing kind of head on, is, hey, here's what we think, you know, tell us why we're wrong kind of scenario. So yeah, if it's a report that we can't accept, we would take it at that point and then decide if, you know, we need to have that conversation with them.
Hey, Rob, isn't it either compliant or it's not? I mean, how can they say it is if it isn't, or isn't and it is? It's either is or it isn't, right?
Well, for a lot of things, that is true. So for most design things, that's pretty much how it is. It's very black and white in engineering and architecture. ADA has some guiding principles, and there aren't a lot of there isn't a lot of detail into their recommendations. So designers can meet that a lot of different ways, and it's not always obvious how they're meeting that. So yeah, I do think the ADA needs to be something that we dig down into just a little bit more. And not everything has to be ADA. You know, you have to have an ADA accessible route, but every route that you have doesn't have to be ADA accessible. So there's, you know, there may be areas that we're looking at that are not designated ADA routes, and there's an alternate route that provides that equal access. So yeah, it's a little bit more of a gray area, but it's cleared up if you know the designer's intent, and then you can make that evaluation.
Cool. Thank you.
So Rob, could I ask, because I know, you know, building codes, it's all up to interpretation, that when you get a preliminary report from that designer, that you share it with the access board, which will review it, you know, free of charge as part of their mission, just to maybe get any comments they may have?
Yeah, we can do that.
And you could ask the designer to do that. The town wouldn't have to do it. They could submit it to the access board just for comment.
Okay, perfect. All right, we have any other before I move on? Okay, well, as far as our justification for this, I know, you know, we've been through this, but it's been updated and we have new numbers. So I want to kind of talk through, you know, why we're asking for the funds, where we're at today compared to where we started, and just kind of put a capstone on the total project budget. So, you know, at the beginning of this ask, way back in December when we were coming to the January meeting, the town just didn't have adequate funds in the contingency to build this project out. The town had about $100,000 in that owner's contingency, and that represented really 1% of the total cost of the project. You guys know, as you look at all of the projects we do, we generally put a 10% contingency on for a normally let project. This project has really been run that way from the beginning, as far as, you know, how we run it, traditional versus CM at risk, things like that. That 10% contingency would have represented around $950,000 if we would have anticipated some of the real overruns that you have on a project of this size, a lot of dirt work. Those are really the projects that have a lot of unknowns in them. So, this request that we're presenting is $260,000. That completes the remainder of the project. We don't plan to come to council to ask for any more funding, any more construction funding above and beyond this. That added to last month's budget came in at, I skipped over one here. Yeah, that if you add that up to, in addition to January, it got us to the $823,000 budget item. That's all construction that we plan on requesting. Keep in mind, if we want to do the Sims parking, that's an additional CIP project that's not included in here. And we still have some outstanding negotiation type issues. The walking track that, we're unsatisfied with the quality, that we're still looking to get that fixed. And then we have some just outstanding liabilities, both on the contractor that they may owe the town, and that the town may owe the contractor, that I've been trying to keep council aware of. But as far as the construction and what we actually want to build out there, this is our final request, $823,000 total. That would represent about 9.5% contingency for the project, which is generally in line with we would set up on all of our capital improvements. All the funding that, if any of this funding isn't necessary, that'll all go back into the, sorry, I lost my place here. My screen messed up. Sorry. Basically, all the funding that we're not going to spend on this will go back into the capital reserve fund. We're going to continue to go through our change order processes, negotiate these with contractors as far as labor, material, and we've seen those pan out so far based on the January requests. We tend to be under budget on those as we kind of go through and tighten up these costs a little bit. So far, what we've done is we've negotiated and approved. It's actually updated now because we got a few more today, but as of last Friday, we had approved 7 of the 18 items from January. It took a little bit of time to get the contractor familiar with how to submit those in the proper format, how to get those negotiated, what could be charged and what couldn't. But of those original ones that we'd approved, we had a budget savings of about $15,200 on 6 of the items, and then a small overage on one of the items of $800. What we'd like to do moving forward is get a consensus from council for us to utilize any of the already approved budget item savings on the overages. So in this case, we're asking specifically, of that 15,200 that we're under on the first 6, we'd like to use 800 on the fence gate, which is the material price is just a little bit higher from the subcontractor than it was a year ago when we priced this stuff out. So it's coming in at $800 over. We'd like to use that. And I made that assurance to council that we'd bring that back to you guys if anything was over. So we'd like to get a consensus to do that on this one item. And then moving forward, in order to keep going from a schedule standpoint, we'd like to continue to operate like that. So if we're digging for the maintenance yard improvements and we hit a water valve or a water line that was mismarked, I don't want to have to kind of pause the project. I'd like to be able to just, move small amounts of funds around within there, as long as we're not going over the budget item as a whole that we get approved from council. So our recommendation for tonight is staff recommends the approval of the proposed budget amendment in the amount of $260,000 to fund the improvements necessary to complete the list of items requested for Harrisburg Park expansion project. Any questions?
Hey, Rob, I completely understand your need to kind of shift funds around and things like that to keep things moving forward. I certainly understand that 100% and would be for that if consensus is asked for. I'd only ask that if something seems way out of line, that maybe you at least bring it up to us potentially in an email and say this is way off more than 50% or something like that.
Yeah, and my intent was in the weekly update to kind of highlight anything that would be an over and compare the underages and just kind of build consensus that way so that you guys are familiar with anything that's over. We're not seeing anything, wildly over. Everything's kind of in that 5 to 10% range, and it's rare. I think we've only had 2 or 3, and hopefully they're all under moving forward. But yeah, it would be very helpful to us if we're trying to get open for our spring athletics to be able to act quickly on some of these change requests if they're moderately over.
Hey, Rob, Councilmember Smith here. I just appreciate you and Sean, your staff, town management for working through all this. These are the presentation no one likes to give, especially when we're thinking it's one number and it's something else. So while I'm not a fan of adding more money, I'll support you tonight. I appreciate town management. I appreciate you, Sean, and your staff of getting this together and in a short amount of time and working through all these challenges. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we go to consideration?
So I am appreciative that you're waiting on the parking spaces and you're going to look, Rob, and see if that's really going to be an issue. That's great that we're not doing that. I appreciate it. I'm still a little bit concerned about the ADA, that we're not going to do anything, that we're going to have to come back once the ADA comes out and says, this is not ADA compliant. Whether, especially that slope and degree and rails right there at the part that's closest to the library. I really want us to look into the sponsorships, and I know you're working on that, Haynes. Do you know when we can expect to receive something back on that?
Yeah, so that was actually an action item from January's council meeting, was to give council an update on sponsorship opportunities to the park. So we sent that out in an email to everyone, alerting what our staff is currently working on. We're trying to secure an all-encompassing, sort of single sponsorship for Harrisburg Park. And we're asking for 7 figures for that level of sponsorship. And we've had really good conversations with healthcare providers in the region who are both interested in that. And we've had meetings and conversations with them. COVID's obviously redirected their interest and their attention right now, but it is intentions of the staff to continue those conversations, and hopefully we can lock something down soon. Having an almost finished product actually helps us out too in that regard, because they can physically, see it and visit it. So we'll be active on that end, but I don't really have a timeline for when we can expect that at this point.
All right, thank you. Everybody knows that the park is a concern of mine. Last month I voted no. I will vote yes tonight, but I do hope in the next 6 months to 8 months that we are not approached with anything additional for this park.
Councilmember Dillinger, I wanted to ask Rob to make a clarifying comment. He did in his presentation, but he also said that this encaptures everything. But we do have that one outstanding item that's yet to be negotiated with the contractor, and that's the track around the four-field complex. So, Rob, would you mind providing just some clarifying comments on that and what your expectation is for that moving forward, because that is not captured in this funding request?
Yeah, no, and I think that's an important clarification. So thanks for bringing that up, because we do have, and I'll tack on a few other ones, but. So the track was put in at 8 foot, so it's narrower. than the original design, and that was done at behest of the town. So that's a decision that the project manager made at the time. And we also have an issue with quality on it. So there are several areas where we have standing water. We have, cracks in the asphalt. We have damages that are rutting. So what we've gone through and said, here's kind of an opportunity for a win-win. We want it to be wider. You guys have areas that you need to. So, why don't we get a credit based on what you guys would have had to spend? The contractor would have had to spend on repairing it, and give us a credit, and we'll pay the difference to go to 10 foot. We have not been able to come to an agreement on that. The first offer that we had as far as a credit was insignificant to the total cost. It was something that we rejected. And so until we get to a point where we get a legitimate ask back, we can't make a recommendation and can't decide what we're going to do with the park. We can certainly force them to give a quality product and replace it as it is at 8 foot. But as far as the expansion, that would be on us, but we don't know what that expansion would look like, whether it's something that we're paying for later and doing a CIP, and we don't do payment for the area that's currently deficient, or whether we let them fix it and we accept an 8 foot. That's going to be a council decision once the subcontractor, the contractor, and the town staff get to a point where we have an agreement that we can bring to you. Or otherwise we'd just be pointing out that we're at an impasse, and then we'd involve Rich and the other powers to kind of negotiate that further.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, no problem. And then again, there are some things that we're not going to ask as far as construction, but are potential financial liabilities on both sides. And I've been trying to call those out, and each week in the weekly report to council that, there's a claim for additional inspection, which preliminarily we don't have any evidence of, but is supposedly forthcoming, as well as some overruns on materials. These are all things that are already been done and will be negotiated at the end of the project. But no new construction projects are going to be asked, with the caveat of that park, which technically isn't anything new, but it's a negotiation item that we still haven't solved.
Any other questions? Council for
So Rob, just a quick question on the track then. Do you feel like negotiations on the track would put you in a stronger position if council said, we think it's, we'll leave it up to your discretion as long as we don't go past, total approved budget amendment? In other words, if you save a bunch of money on some other items, that you would be on stronger footing for negotiations if we said, if you can get it done within that amendment, go ahead and take care of it.
I would appreciate that, but I don't know that it's needed at this time or makes a difference one way or another as far as the negotiations, just because the subcontractor's proposal to fix it was so insignificant that it's a rounding error in the total cost of a new track. So, unless there's some significant movement in what they value as the credit, my suggestion is going to be to them, then make it meet, our standards, so that they get a realistic cost expectation, because I think there's a big gap in between what the subcontractor believes is an acceptable product and what the town believes is an acceptable product. And until we get closer on that, I think our negotiation is a little further away. And the construction manager on this is finally kind of come over to the town side as far as what we'll accept. So we have made ground, but it's really up to the subcontractor at this point. And what we're suggesting is, holding payment on the track in its entirety until this is resolved.
Are we also leveraging the bond on this potentially?
I haven't even gone into the bond negotiation because we have cash held. So to me, cash is always king on these types of projects. The contractor wants their payment, and they have subcontractors to pay, and we're holding $1 million worth of their money. So we're not going to release the amount for the track. We can't really release the amount for the track until we agree that it's substantially complete.
Are you still at 5% retainage for the entire contract, or have we kicked some of that loose?
I don't,
I on the total, Rob.
What's that?
We're 5% on the total, and then we have the right to hold the track on top of that if we'd like.
Right. That's what I was thinking, but we're at about $1 million right now as far as our total amounts that we have held.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
Move for approval, Mayor.
Got a motion on the floor?
Smith, second.
I'm sorry? Any more
Smith,
discussion? Yep.
second.
Got it. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron? Councilman John? Councilman Rodney?
Aye.
Councilman Ian?
Aye.
Councilman Rick?
Aye.
Troy?
Aye.
Councilman Dodd?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving along, I think you're up again, Rob, AMI water meter. Budget.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for approving that. And I'll apologize for some of the stuttering and stammering. My Zoom isn't working real well, so some of these slides I'm going off of memory while it's trying to load. So if that happens with AMI, just please be patient with me as well.
Rob, just get it done. We want that park done. Get it done.
We're doing our best. Nobody wants that park done sooner than I do. Trust me. So the next one we have up is a budget amendment for AMI cam strut meters. This should look familiar to you guys. We did this in, I believe, October as well. We had an issue last year with switching from a CIP funding of our meters to an operational funding, and all the logistics that were associated with that. So basically, we underfunded in the operational fund and overfunded in the CIP, and because the CIP was cut, we had to go back and reanalyze what we'd need to finish out the fiscal year as far as our meters. So the department does about 75 meter repairs per month. These are where old meters break, aren't working. We get calls from customers, so we go out and repair them. And then we anticipated about 400 homes, new starts this year for meters. And we came to you guys in October with those numbers, and decided to fund it partially. So the total new budget for that was taken through January, and I'm sorry, through March. And we were told, come back in January, reanalyze it, and we'll look at the new ask at that point. So what we originally looked at was a $238,000 shortfall to do those 75 meters per month in repairs and the 400 new starts. Skip ahead a little bit here. In October, that we did a partial with the 75 for repairs per month for 12 months, and then about 9 months of those, 9 months of the repairs at 75 per month, and all 400 new homes. And that came up to 112,000 of that 238 that we thought we would need. Turns out when we when we fast forward to, where we're at now, is that we had 689 new starts that we're projecting this year. We're well above the 400. That's a tremendous amount of new starts, but it wasn't something entirely unanticipated as well. We've got a lot of backlog in our subdivisions as they adjusted to some of our new regulations that slowed development quite a bit in Harrisburg, and it's kind of catching up now. So yeah, and back to the October amendment was a total 112,000. There's revenue of those new meters, so we offset that with the 52,000 in new revenue. We took a look at the analysis from October until now, and it'll be necessary to request additional funding for 250 additional meters for repair and about 289 meters for the new houses, above and beyond the request that we'd already had. What's this mean to our budget? The total additional funding is $99,000. So that's slightly lower than what we had projected initially, which was 128,000, would kind of get us throughout the rest of the year if we made that change here at the February meeting. 100% of this request, this 99,000, is funded by additional revenue due to new development meter fees. So each new home that comes in pays for their meter. It's I think $520, and that covers the meter installation and so forth. So the additional new starts that we've had actually pays for itself. So although we're asking for a budget addition of 99,000, it also comes with a revenue greater than 99,000. So our recommendation or our ask is that you approve the attached budget amendment in the net amount of $0 and gross amount of $99,000 to purchase meters for new builds and repairs to close out the fiscal year. You have any questions?
Rob, Councilman Selberg here.
Sure.
We will rectify this as we continue with budget negotiations for next year, where we won't get into this situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've pretty much already compiled internally and at the department level our operational budgets. And because this wasn't included in the CIP last year, we've already remedied that. So we're projecting in our operational budget what it'll take to do these repairs and do new starts, and that'll be our starting point in our operational budget as what we absolutely need. So yeah, it won't be a problem next year.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion on the floor.
Smith, second.
Properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron. Councilman John. Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving to update the new TIA process for consideration of extension.
Yeah, so, and I don't have a presentation for this one because it's identical to last month. Last month, we came and asked for the 30-day extension in order to get information compiled so that we could come back with and really show the proof in the pudding as far as what's the TIA extension mean and compare the numbers back and forth. So in the meantime, we've gotten that back, but it was really the end of this week that we got that information back. And I didn't feel it was prudent or give us enough time to go ahead and compile all that information, give council time to look at it, give town hall and planning and everybody else time to look at it. So our extension took us to the end of February. We already had approved. Next meeting is March 8th. So we're really just coming to this meeting, ask, basically to extend it out into the next council. So give us that other week on top of the 30-day extension so that we can put that information together, give you guys time to review it, digest it, and be able to make an informed decision at the next meeting. Any questions on that?
Council for consideration.
Move for approval, Mayor.
Motion on the floor.
Second.
Properly second. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman John. Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilman Diamond. Carries.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I think our next one's the water line replacement, correct?
We're gonna go back and do
Black and Beach, Rob.
Yep. Okay. So the next one up is the Black and Beach contract. I do have a presentation for that. This is our 2021 water line replacement project. The background for this is a CIP project for the town. We do this annually. This is something that you should be familiar with, but the town identifies all of our aging and undersized water lines throughout town on an annual basis. We have an ongoing analysis on that and a 10-year program for upsizing and replacement. That also is there to meet the growth needs of the town in addition to our maintenance and replacement schedule. The 2021 water line replacement project, this includes the most pressing sections of water line that we have and that need replaced within the financial constraints of the department, obviously. The benefits to doing this are we increase the water quality to the houses. We increase redundancy so that if we lose our water source from one direction, that it can feed another direction with the same quality and pressures. It lowers the labor costs to the town as far as our maintenance crews going out and fixing breaks and flushing hydrants and doing all the things we need to do to maintain this. And we also prioritize the smaller lines for replacement because those lines can't provide adequate fire protection. So a lot of these will be 2 and 3 inch lines that we upgrade, 6 inch lines so that we can put hydrants in and provide fire protection in neighborhoods that don't have it. And then lastly is increased system reliability. So every time we get a break, every time something happens on these older lines, it's just an unreliable system. It affects other customers outside of the system, and then it affects the customers inside that system who are paying for water and expect it to be there and not really have disruptions frequently. So those are the benefits of it and the reason we do these projects. This map that you have here are the lines that we're replacing on this year's program. So we have School Street and Autumn, long section of Autumn that we've kind of waited on until we could get some of our Woodside, I'm sorry, in Autumn, and then School. Alongside of Woodside and Autumn that we were waiting until our System A project was far enough along to be able to complete that, as well as School, because we've had ongoing improvements in those areas and we don't want to tear up the road for a water line and then tear it up again and replace those water lines when we do a storm sewer or a sewer or a paving project. So this particular project is approximately 4,600 lineal feet of 2 inch and 3 inch water main. That'll be replaced with 6 inch PVC water lines. Again, it's on Woodside Drive, School, and Autumn Drive between Woodside and Parallel. We'll incorporate fire protection and add mainline valves for future maintenance and operation. What we're asking now is approval of the engineering for it. We split our engineering and construction into separate fiscal years. So we'll design this year for the project and we'll construct after July. We've selected Black and Beach for the engineering, design, and permitting. That amounts $120,000, and the total project, including construction, is $1,166,000. The design should be complete by the end of August, and we generally go to permitting and for another month or so, and then we'll bid these late fall for early spring construction. Any questions on that so far? Okay, well, our recommendation is approval of the contract in the amount of $120,000 to Black and Beach International Company for the design of the 21 waterline project and the related project ordinance amendment.
Move for approval, Mayor.
A motion on the floor. Second, properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman John. Aye. Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
All right. You up again? I'm getting tired of you, Rob. I'm just saying.
Oh, where are we at now? We got, okay, next item on the agenda is the, sorry, I just switch over to a different, sorry, I'm switching over to a different agenda item here, or a different PowerPoint.
So
Maybe.
Rob, this year.
We
we'll
ever
see
go
the-
through a meeting without anybody asking for any money?
Never.
Huh? Getting tired of you, Rob, up there asking for money.
I'm sure you are. All right. So the next item we have on the agenda is another item, but we're not asking for money, right? We're just going to ask you to move items on a CIP spreadsheet without any additional money. So the item we have here is a budget ordinance amendment, and this is for a capital purchase and to be able to surplus an existing item. The long and the short of this is that about 6 years ago, we purchased a mower. When I say a mower, it's a tractor with different mowing implements on it. We use this to do highway right-of-ways, to do sewer outfalls. So it really is a large piece of commercial equipment that has to really be able to traverse some tough properties and also be able to really take a beating. And what we had bought 6 years ago was a boom arm mower. So it has a articulating arm on the side with a 96-inch mowing head that we're able to articulate and get behind guardrails. And it's a really nice piece of equipment, but we don't use it very much. We generally send our crews out to weed eat guardrails and things like that. What we do use a lot is the side flails. So the big mowers or the big cutting wheels that come off the side of a tractor or off the back of a tractor, because those are much easier to operate. They gauge off the ground height rather than having an operator articulate that up and down. So the reason we're coming to you, I mean, that's a normal part of our process, is to kind of upgrade equipment, and that's usually in the CIP. But we got it, switched around with a dump truck that we have. So this tractor was planned on being replaced in 2024, and we have a dump truck that we're going to replace this year. In talking with our operational staff, the dump truck is a less pressing need than this tractor. They're equivalent costs. So we're just asking to move the dump truck that we were going to replace this year into 2024 and move this tractor up to this year, so that our guys basically have the equipment they need to get their jobs done in the field. Again, as far as the financial impact, the total cost of the tractor is $102,000. The salvage value for the current tractor that we have is approximately $40,000. So we're looking at a $62,000 purchase as far as funding, and we have $65,000 in that line item where we were going to do the dump truck.
So it's not costing no money.
No additional money.
Man, killing me.
Step in real quick because this piece of equipment is split between the general fund and the water sewer fund. And so the $20,000 of revenue will be split, or the $40,000 will be split 2020 to the general fund and the water sewer fund. The water sewer fund is picking up this new net expense of 32.5, whereas the general fund already has this capital item at 65,000. And so we're backing off of that 65 down to the net. But the water sewer fund is having to come out of pocket, essentially out of the capital reserve fund to fund that net amount of 32.5.
Killing me, Brian.
No, I'm sorry.
Killing me. No, yeah, I mean, obviously, from an accounting standpoint there, we'll have to move from one to another, but is basically encumbered as intended per the overall CIP program.
Pretty smooth transition, Brian. I like it. You're almost as good as Lee.
So in the middle of kind of our budget process, can you tell me the reason why again that it needs to be done, I guess currently as an action item instead of during the budget process?
Yeah, as far as need, it's something that we would have liked to have done back in July, when we kind of analyzed purchasing the dump truck. So we've put it off 6 months only because of COVID. So as far as our need, we were kind of waiting till January to do that purchase. But ultimately we need the council permission to change the two pieces of equipment. We don't intend to replace the dump if this weren't approved. So we would just hold on to the dump truck for another 6 to 8 months, and then as part of the CIP switch it then. But right now, as far as our equipment, we're using it. It's not that it doesn't work, but it definitely takes a lot longer for our guys to do their job on the tractor the way it's set up. And we had the equipment for the dump truck sitting there, so we thought now was the best time to do it. Really, we thought earlier in the fall was probably the right time to do it, but we're trying to be respectful to wait for some of our funding numbers to come in and make sure that we were getting those same revenues into this year.
Mayor, motion to approve.
Got a motion on the floor.
Second.
Properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron. Councilman John. Aye. Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Parks and Rec Advisory Board appointments.
All right, good evening again. So I don't have a presentation for this. This is in your packet. We currently have 3 vacancies on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. None of the current members that were in those spots chose to reapply. Per our bylaws, we advertise those vacancies for 60 days. So we did do that. We also are required to form a subcommittee to interview any applicants for the board. So that subcommittee was formed in November. We only received 2 applications for the board. Those were reviewed prior by the subcommittee. They were interviewed by the subcommittee. And then those 2 applicants attended the January Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting so that they could meet the board and answer any additional questions that the board may have. Those 2 applicants were Delroy Ross. Delroy is currently a coach and coordinator in our youth athletic program. He has children involved in our program. On the professional side, he has the background in risk management. And the other applicant was Tim Morris. And neither of these gentlemen have served on the board before. Tim did apply to be on the advisory board last year and was not selected. Tim has also served as a volunteer coach in our program. and has a background in contract negotiation and project management. I do want to note Tim Morris also serves on the Sustainability Advisory Board currently. There is nothing in the bylaws that state that a citizen cannot serve on two boards. But at the January advisory board meeting, the board did make a recommendation to council to appoint the applicants to two of the vacancies on the board. We still do have one vacancy. We will continue to advertise that in hopes that we'll get additional applications between now and the February advisory board meeting, and we'll, same process, the subcommittee will review those and then we'll bring any of those recommendations to you all at your March meeting.
Any questions for Sean? Go to council for consideration.
Move for approval.
Got a motion.
Smith, second.
Properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
John. Aye. Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. So we have a new agenda item, 6D, code of conduct. I'll kick it over to Diamond. Councilwoman Diamond.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. In looking and reviewing the complaint that we received from one of the residents, all of the complaint information stemmed to be from online communications or social media communications. And so I was looking through our current code of conduct, and there's nothing in our code of conduct that specifies exactly and specifically how we should interact with the public online or in person or virtually. The only thing that we have for us as council members is under in unofficial settings number 5. Remember that elected officials' actions are always being scrutinized. And I wanted to see if we could possibly add the following to number 5. I'm going to read 5 in its entirety. So the community is constantly observing elected officials every day that they serve in office. Their behaviors and comments serve as models for proper deportment in the town. Honesty and respect for the dignity of each individual should be reflected in every word and action taken by elected officials 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in person, virtually, and on social media platforms. I'm sorry. It is a serious and continuous responsibility. I think given that the complaint came because of those issues that were online and things that were happening in our community that were posted online, I think that's probably something that we all should want to support, more so to protect ourselves and our communications for town events and for us as elected officials. And I wanted to get feedback from everyone, what they thought about that, because everyone did receive that email. But I do want to make sure that we are, no matter where we are, even in particular on social media, that we're acting in the utmost respect of the individuals that we interact with.
Council?
Well, I'll start it off. I'm not a big social media person as far as Harrisburg goes. I do get on Facebook with my family and friends at gatherings for a football party or something. But I totally agree. And it's terrible. It's not terrible to say this, but we are a figure of the town. So I don't like any council member, especially through elections. There's been a lot of stuff on different Harrisburg sites, and I don't even get on the site. So sometimes people have to tell me what was said. So I somewhat got to believe, I don't really think that council members should be on Harrisburg NC and stuff with their opinion. But like I said, that's just me. I'm old school. When I went to college, there was no computers. There was a slide rule. Like I said, I post with my son and my wife and my daughter, maybe on Facebook at a football party or enjoying a birthday, but I definitely wouldn't get involved in any interaction with a resident. And I don't know what it's all about, but I just think it's a good thing for us to stay off social media. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll hang up.
Other council members?
Does Rich have an opinion on this? I mean, where is our line drawn? Let's say I have a buddy who, which I do have one of these, that we insult each other as part of a joke. Could I be reprimanded for not following the code of conduct for, a joke a buddy and I share online?
Well, excluding you, Mr. Patrick, many of us work for corporate America, and many of us within our own jobs have a very stringent code of conduct, especially when it comes to social media, how we can represent the companies we represent, and
Is that Rich? Oh,
that's Councilman Troy. Troy, that was Troy.
Oh, Rich?
I started to say something, but let me just say, I just heard that for the first time from when Councilwoman Diamond read it out. I didn't hear anything that struck me really hard as being a problem, but I don't want to pass on it completely with just having heard it one time orally. But I would say that you have to be careful about any prior restraint on free speech, and that would be the one thing, the overriding concern that I would have if you said that people couldn't be on social media at all. That I don't think that would be something that would be legal, and so I would certainly not recommend that. You can put restrictions on it, as was just being said, because a lot of corporations do have restrictions on how you use social media, but you couldn't just come in and say you can't use it at all. And so we'd have to look at exactly what we're talking about here in terms of limiting council members, and being able to express themselves freely and in different ways and on different social and other platforms.
So the verbiage that Councilman Diamond read just simply is an add-on to the end, I think, of the existing code of conduct that represents just making sure we act right 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including social media areas. So is that something council would entertain putting into the code of conduct as an addition? What we can do is get it rewritten and drop it in the consent agenda for next month, if that's acceptable. It's just simply adding the end statement that she added to that code. Everybody agree with that or disagree?
Rich, I agree with you, but I'm just going to tell you, I know that US Air fired people for saying stuff on social media about the company. That sort of made me not want to get on it. And I agree with you. There is a freedom of speech rule, but when you work for a company, probably like Ron and Steve do, Wells Fargo and Diamond with the hospital, and me prior with American Airlines, there definitely is. You definitely can't say anything about the company. I can tell you that. They'll fire you in a minute. I've had to represent people that have been terminated, and I hate to say it, it was to no avail. But like I said, everybody's got their own thing. I just don't really, I read a lot instead of getting on a lot. But whatever you guys want to do is fine with me.
Well, no,
This is Councilman Dellinger. I'd like to make a motion to defer this until the attorney is able to look at the actual verbiage and see if there's anything that he needs to add or take away from.
Got a motion on the floor to defer any consideration until after the attorney looks at it.
I'll second.
Properly seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Councilman Ron?
Aye.
Councilman John? Councilman Rodney?
Aye.
Councilman Ian?
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilman Diamond.
Ah,
Motion carries.
Diamond, will you email that to me?
I am. I'm going to email it to everyone.
Thank you.
That concludes regular business. We'll go to action items.
All right, Mayor and Council, just a quick rundown from action items at our January council meeting. Moving forward, we'll give updates to the public and council on previous action items that have been established. So from the January meeting, we discussed holding a community chat. We actually scheduled it at that time for January 28th. We had that event last week successfully. As Councilwoman Stanton Williams mentioned earlier, we do have another one planned for Thursday, April 29th. So we look forward to organizing an agenda for that and getting that advertised. Also mentioned earlier, there was a request for sponsorship updates for Harrisburg Park. So that was emailed out to council members on the objectives there, and staff is currently actively pursuing those. There was also conversations asked about HCYA and dollars for potential park projects. I believe that number was also provided at the meeting. There was also a request to communicate out to the public the recent savings that the town would experience from the refinancing of some of our water and sewer debt that our finance department recently took on, and that took place on the town's social media and website platforms. And then there was a question regarding a resident complaint about the Harris Depot and Highway 49 intersection not having any street lights. So our staff was able to look into that and determine that there are no existing street lights at that particular intersection in that area. So it's not like we had, a light out or something like that. They just, it's simply an area that does not have those. We reached out to NCDOT and they did not have any interest to pursue installing streetlights themselves, but they did say that if it was something that the town wanted to look into, we could certainly do that on our own. So we can have those conversations with the council as we go into our budget processes, but those are all the action items that I had from January. As far as new action items established tonight, I have two. I think I have two. The first one was Councilman Selberg asked for staff to look into auditing the sponsorships through our Parks and Recreation Department, looking at our policies and existing partnerships and future partnerships to protect any risk of the town. So without any objection from council, staff will do that and continue to do that and monitor those moving forward. If we find any updates, we'll bring those back to you. If we need to reestablish or establish any policies that we don't currently have in place, we'll update you guys on those as well. And then final was just the last item there related to the code of conduct. We'll work with the town attorney to add some language recommended by Councilwoman Stanton Williams, and we'll bring that back to you guys once the attorney is reviewed.
Everybody good with that? All right, thank you.
I did want to provide one more update. I apologize earlier. We do have a meeting conflict that we're going to work to resolve. The town council scheduled our next budget workshop on February 17th. Late last week, a notice went out advertising the Highway 49 corridor meeting that's also on February 17th at the same time. So we will work to reschedule the Highway 49 corridor meeting. We'll get new advertisements out to all of the business owners and property owners on Highway 49 because we actually made a mailing out to all of those individual property owners so they were aware of the meeting. But we will have to get that rescheduled because of the conflict there. So sorry for that.
They're not going virtually. We could go virtually and not have a conflict though, right?
Yeah, and unless there was a situation where either council members or the public wanted to attend both, they wouldn't be able to do so.
You're right.
Yeah, so we'll probably just reschedule that.
Wouldn't it be less costly to reschedule us?
If you guys can, less costly, probably not. Probably not any additional cost to reschedule on the Highway 49. I worry getting you guys 8 schedules collectively for the next meeting may be complicated. But I'm open to any option, whatever you guys prefer to do.
I guess where I was at, I just didn't want to lose the opportunity if anybody was potentially planning on going to that meeting for beautification. I'll do whichever.
Yeah, we'll take whatever you guys feel comfortable with. We will certainly do.
So what are the wishes of the council? Move 49 project or move us?
I'd be good for meeting on the 16th. Which would be the day before.
Well, that's the planning and zoning board.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, a week from the 17th is the 24th. What about the 24th for us?
Currently have one on the 25th. We have a budget workshop on the
Gotcha.
25th.
Yeah, it will.
I think the way it's spaced out is probably why it makes more sense to move the 49 project. Otherwise, we'll be stacked up 2 in a week.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other council members' input? So we will move the 49 forward.
The 49 project is a public information session, yes?
Yes, sir.
If we move that, can we push extra hard on social media so people know that it's been changed and know about it?
Yes, sir. We're going to do additional mailings and social media and website posting on that. So we'll hit it at every angle that we can. Is that satisfactory to council?
Very good. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Adjourn.
I have a second. I'll just go with all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.